UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here, right now on Talk. Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of news, views and topical debate. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 7 o'clock. Get stuck in, get on the phone and call me on 03444991000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number. And I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, March the 23rd. Here's what's coming up. There's no place for anti-Semitism in our society. Parrots PM Keir Starmer in a platitudinous statement that is clearly just not true. 2 Jews were killed in an anti-Semitic attack on a Manchester synagogue last year, and now 4 ambulances funded by Jewish charities have been firebombed in the Jewish area of Golders Green in North London. Not far from where I live, my wife heard the explosions last night. While Starmer and London Mayor Sadiq Khan spew their empty faults are with the relatives and loved ones, etc. cliches, what are they doing about the ongoing explosion of Jew hate in Britain? What are they actually doing? About as much as Two-Tier did when he was joined at the hip with Free Palestine obsessive Jeremy Corbyn, whose constant denials of his own alleged anti-Semitism ring ever more hollow. 03444991000. In other news, more than 500 foreigners crossed the channel illegally as soon as the sun comes out, and left-wing Labour backbenchers threaten revolution over the migrant crisis crackdown. As a result, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is on resignation watch. Go on, Shabs, quit! For all the effect your allegedly hard-line approach is having, who would notice the difference? One Home Secretary blends into the next. They're all useless. 03444991000. More than 500 last week, taking the total this year so far, when the weather's been bad, already to over 4,000. 45,000 last year. Folks, we are on for a minimum of 50,000 this year, probably 60,000. Isn't that special? 03444991000. Meanwhile, risking Britain's safety with his insane doubling down on green claptrap, crazy Ed Miliband and his nut zero lunacy took an astonishing 470 British delegates to the COP30 climate summit in Brazil, and according to shock new figures, wait for it, wasted a staggering £800,000 of taxpayers' money in the process. £800,000 to fly across the Atlantic, stay in expensive hotels, ruin the environment with polluting passenger jets. For what? For what? For nothing. For nothing. All to save the planet. Is it just me? Or was last November's Amazon rainforest jamboree just off the scale epic hypocrisy? 03444991000. Also on today's show, calls to let boys be girl guides. Why? 03444991000. And a council offers counselling to staff to recover from the trauma of Nigel Farage's recent visit. Why? 03444991000. And finally, Kinsey Schofield with the latest on Meghan's Australian cash bonanza. And did Fergie really plan to clone the Queen's corgis just when you thought Randy Andy's rubbish ex-wife could not sink any lower? All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday afternoon together, and for the first 20 minutes or so, let's spend it in the excellent company of New Culture Forum's senior fellow and historian Rafe Heidel-Mancu. Welcome, Rafe.
Hi, Kev. Always good to be with you.
Pleasure to have you on board. Big day. First of all, let's talk about what happened not far from where I lived in the middle of the small hours last night, about 1:45. They've got CCTV footage now of these hooded figures. 3 of them, they think, approaching the sort of bay where they keep 4 ambulances supplied and run by Jewish charities, not just for Jews, for the local community. There they go. If you're watching, they set fire, they exploded those ambulances. This is clearly an anti-Semitic attack. I was just saying, Rafe, my wife actually heard it. She said, nudged me, she said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "No, I was fast asleep." But it just proves, sometimes these things happen on your own doorstep. But we've got Keir Starmer saying there is no place for anti-Semitism in our society. You've got Sadiq Khan saying Londoners will not be cowed by these acts of hate and terrorism, it's just platitudinous crap. Claptrap, utter claptrap from these people. Our thoughts are with the victims of the relatives. But what are people like Starmer and Sadiq Khan actually doing about the obvious explosion of anti-Semitism, of Jew hatred in this country that has got worse and worse and worse, mystifyingly, since the outrageous October the 7th attack by Hamas, killing, raping, maiming, beheaded, murdering 1,200 innocent Jewish people over there in Israel. What has Starmer done about the rise of anti-Semitism? What has Sadiq Khan done? We know what Starmer's done. He's recognised Palestine, rewarding the Hamas thugs who committed that atrocity. So, these politicians giving us their platitudes, what we saw in the middle of the night last night, is their fault, because they never do anything about anti-Semitism, do they?
No. Well, anti-Semitism has been rife in this country for years now, thanks to open doors immigration. We've seen it on the streets of many of our major cities, but it's not, of course, just an internal issue. We've had now for a long time the growing fact that, London, for example, is the most homophobic, misogynistic and anti-Semitic city, just at the same time as the white population goes to historic lows. We know who is behind the anti-Semitism here. Nothing has been done to check that because, of course, Keir Starmer is now hostage. He's hostage to his loony left backbenchers. He's hostage to the Green Party crazies, and he's hostage to the Muslim vote. And he doesn't want to lose any of that. And that means that he does the bare minimum when it comes to actually condemning extremism in the Islamic community, condemning their outrageous views that they hold. But what's happened yesterday is a bit different because, yes, we're very used to anti-Semitism being part and parcel of life in modern-day Britain. But it now seems as if Iran may be behind these attacks on these 4 ambulances. The Israeli embassy says that these fire bombings have all the hallmarks. We've now had a video which claims to be responsible from a new group linked to Tehran, that they were behind all of this. We know that Iran, this is part of Iran's fight back against Trump, is to have these attacks across Europe. We had just recently 2 Iranian immigrants were charged with spying on Jews for Tehran. Another guy tried to go into one of our nuclear bases. So this is actually the repercussions of what's happening in there. And we don't know how many of these asylum seekers who've come over have come from Iran. We don't know how many sleeper cells are in this country waiting to get the message from Iran, from the IRGC, to actually do more of these sorts of things. This is a very worrying turn of events. And it just goes to show, if you import the world, you import the world's problems.
And we're now going through this torturous process that happens every time as the authorities, the government, everyone in power tries desperately to say this was not terrorism. So counter-terrorism police are investigating what happened in Golders Green in the small hours of this morning. Although at this stage, they are not saying that this is a terrorist incident. They've blown up 4 Jewish ambulances. This is terrorism. Well, why do we have to do this every single time? And it will be announced fairly soon that the police have judged this not to be terrorism, even though we all know it is. Why do we always have to go through this mind-numbing, ridiculous process of trying to downgrade clearly anti-Semitic terrorist attacks, just like in the Manchester synagogue? Oh, we're not sure yet, we're not sure yet. It's this palpable attempt by the authorities, by the government, by the police, every time to downgrade anti-Semitic attacks and to make sure they're not regarded as terrorism or even sometimes hate crimes. It's unbelievable.
Yes, because you know full well, if something had happened which was 1/10 as serious as this, but if the perpetrator had been a white chap, you can full well imagine, of course, it'll be deemed to be a terror attack. What we have to understand here, of course, is that the governments now are so beholden to multiculturalism, and the only way they can see that you can keep the multiculturalism bandwagon on the road is by silencing the truth tellers, by denying reality. I'm sorry, if I was a Jew living in that area and I saw four Jewish ambulances blown up, I would be terrified. The people living in Manchester, where of course, two people died at that synagogue there, the people that were terrified there, that's terrorism. Terrorism, the definition of terrorism is strike terror into a community. And Jews in this country are terrified. They're fleeing this nation. Of course, this is a terror attack. There's no other way to describe it. But what we see here again and again is an effort by our elites, by our institutions, to deflect attention away from the reality, because they know that we are a tinderbox waiting to go off. And they're so scared of the repercussions from that they will do anything they can to say that black is white.
Absolutely. It's got to stop. We've got to start. We've got to confront the reality of what's going on. Any incident like this in Golders Green, I live very near Golders Green, you know, it's a great area, but it's a very Jewish area. So anytime you see anything like this, take it as read. This was an attack on Jewish people. This was anti-Semitic. They blew up 4 ambulances, quite a sight. This was terrorism. And, you know, I do not want to hear this ludicrous prevarication every single time. Oh, we're examining, well, counter-terrorist police are investigating, but they haven't yet established whether or not it was terrorism. Stop all this nonsense. Let's get real. Talking of which, the migrant crisis got real last week, Rafe. More than 500 migrants took the opportunity of the good weather to come across last week. I think they're still coming as we speak. Meanwhile, we hear that Shabana Mahmood is busy trying to deport as many migrants who are here as possible before they get the chance to appeal. That won't happen. This government will not let that happen. But more pertinently to this unfolding chaos, the chaos that's unfolding before our very eyes, Shabana Mahmood now, the Home Secretary, who's done something towards trying to crack down on this escalating, spiralling crisis, is now on resignation watch because she knows that all these far-left Labour backbenchers who hate her migrant crisis crackdown, Angela Rayner last week calling it un-British, they are not going to allow her crackdown to happen. And as such, she's been saying, apparently, look, if they won't let me do anything, I might as well go. So she's on resignation watch, and this is another indication as the migrant crisis gets worse and worse and worse. Really bad last week. It's going to be even worse this week. More than 4,000 this year already. Total now under Keir Starmer about 70,000. It's ridiculous. And all that's going to happen is we'll probably lose a halfway decent Home Secretary who wants to do something about it because the left-wing backbenchers won't let her do anything about it. They want open borders and just let everybody in.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what's happened now. We have policy being decided essentially by Labour backbenchers. So weak is Keir Starmer and so feeble. Not just on this policy, but also on granting the Boris wave indefinite leave to remain. People may not realise, but 4.8 million people arrived here between 2021 and 2025 in the so-called Boris wave, a deliberate attempt to flood the nation and suppress wages to keep inflation under control. That's what Boris Johnson said. And the first, after 5 years, of course, these people become eligible for permanent residency, giving them full rights to our benefit system, to social housing. And as of January, as of 2 months ago, the first ripple of that Boris wave became eligible for indefinite leave to remain. And Shabana Mahmood and Keir Starmer both want to extend from 5 years to 10 years, how long it will take you before you can get indefinite leave to remain and start claiming benefits. And what it looks like now that they're both going to have to do a U-turn, the worst U-turn of his premiership, and that's saying something because his backbenchers and Angela Rayner said it's un-British to deny indefinite leave to remain to these low-skilled, low-wage earners who flooded the country. 7% of the demographics of this country changed in just 3 years, thanks to the Boris wave. They will cost us potentially tens of billions of pounds if they get the right to live here and have benefits and social housing. And here again, we've got Labour backbenchers wanting to bankrupt the country because of their so-called social justice. And it's the same thing again with this story with Shabana Mahmood. As Sir Edward Lee, the Tory senior MP, said, Shabana Mahmood, the best Tory Home Secretary we've ever had, because she's done more than the Tories ever did, actually, to try to get a hold on some of this stuff. And she wants, quite rightly, to deport people if they have a failed asylum application. And if they want to appeal it, they can appeal it from wherever they come from India, from Nigeria, which will mean there'll be far less chance of them actually getting the right to stay here. And yet again, we've got these backbenchers trying to ensure that they can do whatever they can to destroy this country. They have a deep, visceral hatred and loathing for Britain.
Yeah, indeed. And she wants Shabana. I mean, I've got a lot of reservations about her. She doesn't want to leave the ECHR, so she's not really serious about solving the migrant crisis. But she's come up with some proposals, and one of them, as you say, was to extend the period of time it takes before you get leave to permanently remain. At the moment, 5 years. We're about to inherit about 3 million migrants who will get leave to permanently remain, thanks to Boris 5 years ago. She wants to extend that to 10 years. Makes sense. The Labour backbenchers won't let her. Doesn't make sense, but welcome to Planet Labour, where virtue signalling is more important than reality. Last quick question to you, Rafe. What do you make of what Donald Trump said today? He's suddenly railed back on his ultimatum that if Iran doesn't open up the Strait of Hormuz completely, he will raise their water supplies, their gas supplies, their oil supplies to the ground. He's been warned that if he does that, that will have a catastrophic effect on the world economy. Iran said, you do that and we will block up the Strait of Hormuz today, forever. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump set up some very productive talks with Iran over the weekend. So I'm not going to bomb them. And we're going to cease, we're going to rail back on our bombing campaign, and hopefully some sort of resolution can be reached. The Iranians immediately saying, we have not said a word to him. He's conducting his own narrative. He's the one who's he's the one who's backtracking, not us. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I'm afraid this is the most embarrassing catastrophe of the Trump presidency. The art of the deal is nowhere to be seen in any of this. He played a game of chicken with Iran. He called their bluff, and he's been the one to back down. And everyone can see it. Everyone can know it. This has been a disastrous attempt. There's been no real plan. I'm all for showing force and strength. But if you're going to do, Americans are very good at always doing the military strike. They're brilliant at their military offensives. But time and time again, they have no plan for what happens after the military offensive. And once again, we don't know what the strategy is here. We know, of course, he had no plan apparently to look after the Straits. Whereas in the 80s, Ronald Reagan was doing this. So people, it's not as if we haven't had to deal with this in the past. And he was advised by his military, we can't do it alone. That's why he went cap in hand to Europe and others to try to use their fleets to join him in there. I think it's a complete disaster, unfortunately. And, it's unfortunately, you get to a point where you just simply have to tell people the truth.
I agree with you, Rafe. I'm a fan of Donald Trump, but whatever way you look at this is a mess. This is absolute chaos. And basically, at this stage, the way it's looking, Iran have won. He's the one who said, all right, then I won't bomb you. because you threatened to block the Strait of Hormuz. Let's talk. No regime change. In the end, you're going to ask, well, what was this all about? I'm afraid this is not good. I agree with you, Rafe. Good to talk to you as always. Rafe Heidel-Manku, historian, senior fellow at the New Culture Forum there. Let's go to break now. And next up, Samara Gill, talks reporter, will be in the studio. She's been down in Golders Green to get the reaction there. And we'll also talk to Simon Johnson, a former chief executive of the Jewish Leadership Council, about what this means for Britain's Jewish community. It doesn't mean anything good, I'll tell you that. All of that next. Stay tuned.
Is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Samara Gill, Talk's ace reporter, is in the studio. Now, Samara, you've been down to Golders Green to gauge the reaction of the local community. I've got someone here telling me, I'm a Jew, can I please correct you? Golders Green is inhabited by a lot of Jews, but it is not a Jewish area. That, folks, is the definition of pedantry. Yeah, it is a Jewish area. I live there. You know what I mean.
Are you a Jew, Kev?
You know,
yeah,
Kevin
O'Sullivan.
Tell us. Kevin O'Sullivan.
Are you
very,
Jewish?
very much so. No, but I stand with Israel, 100%. Well, you've been down there. Shall we watch what you filmed and then you can make your comments? Shall we have it?
Yeah, let's have a look at one of the reactions. I spoke to over 50 people. I was there for over 6 hours, but I think it's important to just see how unsafe Jewish people feel on the streets after this direct attack on their livelihood.
Camera, you told me that you moved to Israel. Do you feel safer in Israel than on the streets of Golders Green?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't see much being done, if anything being done for the Jewish community here. They talk a lot and don't see any action. This is why things like this has happened today.
Because it's like so much money.
So that's one example, but you were surrounded...
There'll be a lot more on YouTube tonight, but that was the general edict of the majority of the people that were there. Most of them said they would prefer to be in Israel, where Iran is dropping bombs on them, than on the streets of Britain. A lot of them saying that they are now considering hiding their Jewish identity. You know, when we talk about Golders Green being a Jewish area, it's a Jewish area because there's a lot of Hasidic Jews, a lot of Orthodox Jews, people who wear their kippas, those hats that you see, etc.
Don't have to tell me.
Yeah, no, well, maybe the audience who doesn't quite understand.
I'm joking, I know.
Yeah, this is your people, really, Kevin.
Well, they're my neighbours, that's for damn sure.
Well, I know, and you know, a lot of people I spoke to, those ambulances that were arsoned had helped their relatives. You know, that they weren't just for Jewish people, they were for everyone to use, Sikhs, Muslims, Christians. They were available for all usage. So it's a direct attack on that community as a whole.
Yeah, and that, as I said earlier, anything that happens in Golders Green along these lines, you can take it is an anti-Semitic attack. You don't choose Golders Green for nothing. And as I understand it, these ambulances were funded by Jewish charities, but they were not just for the Jewish community, they were for the entire community.
Oh, but wait, Wes Streeting, he arrived on the scene. He came just a couple hours after we arrived, a bit late to the punch there, but he said that he was going to replace the ambulances as soon as possible and offered 4 replacement ambulances paid for by the NHS. That's his pledge. So no extra help from the Labour Party towards the Jewish community, no extra security, none of that was promised, but he said that he will replace the ambulances for them. He was booed quite heavily, people shouting shame on Labour. I mean, this is the effect of what happens when we see a global conflict spilling into the British streets. And as I was leaving, counter-terrorism police came in, they started cornering off the scene, and I do believe now it's still alleged, but I think it is being treated as an act of terrorism.
Yeah, but they haven't said. I'm sick of it. They haven't said. This is what we have. Every time something like this happens, we spend about 3 days. The police, government, Labour politicians, the authorities spend about 3 days desperately trying to say, phew, we have concluded it wasn't terrorism. And we're all going, well, what was it? You want to call it something else, do you? Okay, you do that, and we all know the truth. It was terrorism. Israel believes it was Iranians, right?
Well, I'm really over, and even in Wes Streeting's speech, it was very obvious that we continue to hear these ballads. We have it in Australia too as well, where we're having a lot of anti-Semitism, of course, is rife on the streets over there. Anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism. No, let's talk about the root cause of this. Let's not put band-aids over bullet holes here. I think that's what Labour's doing. They're saying, oh, here's a couple of ambulances. Let's just cover this up. All good, no problem. What Wes Streeting didn't say within that speech outside the place was, let's talk about extreme Islam, for example. Let's talk about Islamism. Let's talk about why this might be happening. Now, I'm alleging at the moment, we have no idea who did this. The people are still free. They're still out on the streets. No one's been arrested.
They're anti-Semites. They're Jew haters. There's no doubt about it.
What we see in that video is what I can assume, you know, 3 youngish men who could have been radicalized online, or, as you say, potentially Iranians. So, you know, we know that there have been 20 foiled terrorist...
They're not Jews.
Well, exactly. And there was an attack on a mosque, I think it was late last year, that actually ended up being perpetrated by a Muslim man. But anyway, I don't want to put anyone against each other in this time of great division. But what I do think is that we need to look towards root causes and not just be offering up freebies because of what this community has been under.
And maybe Sadiq Khan and Keir Starmer, while they're spewing their platitudes, might like to look back at everything they haven't done to confront the explosion of anti-Semitism in this country since October the 7th, a couple of years ago. They've done nothing. They've just allowed these great, big, snaking pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic marches to wind through our streets of the big cities every single weekend. Police doing nothing. So don't bother. Starmer, Khan, don't bother. Londoners won't be cowed by this kind of hate. Oh, our thoughts are with the relative, the loved one. Oh, shut up. Just do something. Let's thank you, Samara Gill there, who's been down there for 6 hours. Let's go over to the former chief executive of the Jewish Leadership Council, Simon Johnson. Welcome, Simon. What is your take on what we've seen in Golders Green, what we saw in the early hours of this morning? As I said, I don't live far from there. My wife actually heard the explosions going off, and we're going now through this process every single time. Why are the police, the government, the authorities, locked now in a meaningless internal debate, trying to deliberate as to whether or not this was terrorism. 3 guys set fire to 4 firebombed 4 Jewish ambulances. Looks pretty like terrorism to me, doesn't it, you, Simon?
Afternoon, Kevin, and 100% it is. It is, in my view, a despicable act of racially motivated terrorism. And if the police want to be assisted in working out whether it was terrorism or not, an Iranian-linked terror group called Ashab al-Yamim have helpfully claimed responsibility for this. And what they say, and this is the most disturbing thing about this, is that they claim that the attack was taken place because the ambulances were parked in the grounds of a synagogue that supports Israel. Well, I'm afraid that if Iran thinks that it is a justification for an attack on the Jewish community to blame synagogues for talking about Israel, then there is complete anti-Semitism in this country, because Israel, Zion, Jerusalem is a major part of Jewish liturgy, Jewish thought, Jewish prayer. This is nothing short of a despicable act of racially motivated terrorism. And I completely agree with the sentiments of what you've just said about what politicians are saying. The Prime Minister, in his statement, said that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated. Well, as we know and are seeing, unfortunately, anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom is being tolerated. You are seeing hate-filled marches with people calling for death to Jews and death for Israelis where no action is taken. Only yesterday, we saw an art gallery in Margate which was showing art from an artist that was clearly using anti-Semitic imagery that was centuries old, and the police said that they were not going to take any action. You've seen people putting bricks through the windows and graffiti on a bakery that was once upon a time owned by somebody linked to Israel. And no action is taken. So I'm afraid that today's activity is the result of a society where, unfortunately, anti-Semitism is being tolerated, despite what people say, and where sufficient action is not adequately being taken.
Absolutely. Bob Villan, of course, death to the IDF at Glastonbury, and the pro-Iran demonstration in central London last week, twice has chanted that clearly anti-Semitic slogan to thousands of people. In the case of Glastonbury, also to millions of TV viewers. Both times the police, certainly at Avon and Somerset, police concluded that the criminal threshold had not been reached. Really? Sounds to me like that's a hate crime. And we await the Met Police, having seen him do it last week, that's the London police force, have spent a week deliberating, trying to decide whether or not that was a hate crime, whether or not that was anti-Semitic. There is always this prevarication. The last question to you, Simon. There are all sorts of reasons where I could point the finger at Keir Starmer over not being vigilant enough about anti-Semitism. But I would say when he stands there saying there's no place for anti-Semitism in our society, well, that's just a lie, because there clearly is a place, thanks to people like him and Jeremy Corbyn. But secondly, would you say, if there's no place for anti-Semitism in this society, why did the government reward the shocking, murderous anti-Semitism of Hamas when they invaded Israel and murdered 1,200 innocent Jews? Why did Keir Starmer reward that vile, huge anti-Semitic atrocity with him recognising Palestine?
But Kevin, we could talk for hours and hours and hours about that. I want to go bring this a little bit closer to home. What you have is a situation where there are increasing numbers of people who, being stirred up by racially motivated people or by people on the left who insist that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. People there cannot make the distinction between what they say is criticism of that false claim and the Jewish community. And that is why you are getting Iranian groups now attacking a charity that provides paramedic services at the cost of the Jewish community to the entire community. It's why you had somebody who attacked a Jewish synagogue on the holiest day of the year. It is why you are getting people attacking Jewish buildings and attacking Jewish businesses, because they believe that they are trying to strike a blow for the rights of Palestinians, whereas what they are actually doing is ratcheting up the level of fear and hatred that is being directed against the Jewish community. As I said earlier, the organization that has claimed responsibility for this have said that what they were attacking was a synagogue. That, in my view, is the most alarming thing about this whole development. Yeah. And the sooner that the police and the government recognize that this was racially motivated terrorism, then we have a chance to be able to try and catch the perpetrators and remove this particular threat from the Jewish community.
Exactly right, Simon. We've got to get realistic, confront the reality of what happened last night. Stop just searching around for a different reason to try and, make it seem like a smaller incident than it was. It was extremely serious, and very good to have you on the show, Simon. Simon Johnson, former chief executive of the Jewish Leadership Council. It was terrorism, wasn't it? It was anti-Jewish terrorism. Why can't the government say that? Why can't the police say that? Aren't you sick of this? We're just trying to establish whether or not it was we've got the counter-terrorism police down there, but we don't know yet if it was terrorism. Of course it was bloody terrorism. It's ridiculous. Let's go to break. When we come back, let's talk about the migrant crisis with Labour MP Karl Turner. That next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to my next guest. We need to talk about the migrant crisis. He is the Labour member for Kingston upon Hull East, Karl Turner. Welcome, Karl.
Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming on. I want to talk to you about the migrant crisis, if you don't mind. More than 500 came across the channel illegally last week, taking the tally for 2026 to over 4,000. Quite a high amount for this early in the year. As soon as the weather was good, they started coming. It was revealed over the weekend that of the 38,000 or so hotel-dwelling asylum seekers, they hail from an incredible 150 different countries. The Home Secretary, we learned today, is desperately trying to deport thousands of them before they can appeal, which seems a bit strange. I mean, even I think they should have the legal right to appeal, but that notwithstanding, that's what she wants to do. And also, sorry, there's loads of details here. Britain is facing a surge in small boat crossings, apparently, because talks to extend our £500 million deal with the French to patrol their own beaches have collapsed. All in all, Karl, it is not a sunny outlook for the migrant crisis. It just looks as if it's doomed to keep on getting a whole lot worse.
Well, I think that's a fair analysis. It's getting worse. It will get worse as the weather begins to improve and people start taking the chance of crossing the channel. But I think the Labour government are intent on trying to deal with the crisis. I think it's fair to say that this Home Secretary has done a lot more than previous Home Secretaries to address the issue, and we are trying yet further. But the reality is, we came into government with a manifesto commitment to smash the gangs. Frankly, I think that was for the birds, if I'm being honest with you. At the moment, we've not been able to smash any gangs. Not really. We have dealt with a few, and we have made arrests in terms of some of those gangs. But we need to do much more, that's clear.
Indeed, and it was on Friday, you remember the Smash the Gangs campaign, which began almost the day that Labour won the election, that Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. He said he would solve the migrant crisis by smashing the gangs, and the way he was going to do this was to set up a thing called the Border Security Command, which would be a crack squad equipped to the nines with high-tech surveillance gear and drones, cameras, etc., ace officers patrolling the ocean and all that. Appointed a guy called Martin Hewitt, former copper, £200,000 a year, to oversee this. He said, judge me on my results. 18 months later, last Friday, he quit, having achieved the square root of sod all, to be honest with you. It's not good, is it?
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that this is virtually an impossible task, isn't it? We've got more and more coming across. Why? Because the reality is they see the opportunity to get through Europe into France and across from Calais into Dover. That is the reality of where we are. I'm not going to blame everything on the leaving the EU, but there is a bit of a relevance there when we talk about Dublin 3 regulations, where we used to be able to send them back. You're going to say to me, well, we didn't send many back through.
No, we
that
didn't,
route.
did we? That's the point. You're talking about the Dublin Agreement, yeah?
Well, Dublin 3 regulations, it's true that we didn't send many back through that route, but actually the very deterrent that existed that they could be returned was, in fact, I say, a deterrent. Much more of a deterrent than the Tories did when they were in government.
Yeah, but you haven't got. But Labour,
the general election of 2024.
Yeah, but Carl, Labour now. I'm not blaming you personally. You're one of the good guys, as far as I'm concerned. But Labour now have no deterrents. There are no deterrents whatsoever. The one-in, one-out scheme is a national joke, a sick joke. All we have is a series of enticements. Is what the French keep saying. How do you expect us to stop migrants from coming across the Channel when you in Britain offer them the earth? It's the promised land. Free hotels, free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, free bloody everything. Free hotels, benefits. You get 50 quid a week as soon as you get here. This is no good. These are not deterrents. These are enticements.
Well, look, I think the idea that the Home Secretary comes forward in the recent weeks to suggest that a family is going to get up to 40,000 quid to go back to whence they came is a bit of an embarrassment, frankly.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought it was bonkers, to be perfectly honest with you. The idea that you're going to give 40,000 quid to go back somewhere where they've come from is just for the birds, isn't it? When in fact, she then says, but if they don't go back, they're going to go back anyway because we're going to force them to. Well, if they're going to go back anyway, don't pay them, just get rid of them. But look, the reality is we are doing some positive stuff in relation to this. I think the Home Secretary is determined to change the attraction, as it were, for these people to want to risk what is life and limb, actually, crossing the Channel. And people do die at sea as a result of trying to get to the UK. So we must address it in a humanitarian way. Those refugees and asylum seekers who deserve that status ought to be recognised fairly swiftly. Applications need to be dealt with fast. People who need the security of somewhere to stay need to be looked after. The ones who are not real have to be sent back, in my view. By hook or by crook.
Well, Carl, here's to that. I agree with you there. And I sense that, like me and like a lot of people, that you backing Shabana Mahmood. I mean, I've got reservations about her approach to trying to solve the migrant crisis, because I think if you don't leave the European Convention on Human Rights, you've got no chance of ever solving it in the long run. But apart from her reluctance to do that, I think her heart is in the right place. She recognises this is a crisis that millions and millions of Brits are very concerned about, and she wants to do something about it. Good for her. I think you support her, I support her. However, we hear that the Labour backbenchers, the left-wing backbenchers, who seem to be calling all the shots now, do not like her migrant crisis crackdown, all the sensible proposals she's made. Angela Rayner last week called them un-British, and they are threatening a full-scale revolution should the Prime Minister try to force these through. So we also hear that in the light of that, Shabana Mahmood might even be thinking of quitting. So you get someone sensible, tries to do something about the migrant crisis, and all the lefties on the Labour backbenchers just want to shoot them down and stop them doing that. It's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
I think there's one particular issue that MPs are worried about, which is the indefinite leave to remain aspects. It's currently 5 years. Shabana's saying it ought to be 10. Some of the backbench Labour MPs think that's unfair, it's harsh. But we've got to see what these people are coming for. I mean, the people who've got indefinite leave to remain tend to be people who are doing very important jobs in the communities. That's the reality. And the 5 years is what some would recognise is quite enough to get indefinite leave to remain. So that's the issue.
3 million
but I think
of
the
them
government
right
are trying
now.
to do.
3 million of them right now.
I think the government are trying to. I think the government are trying to deal with another aspect of it, Kevin, which is once you get indefinite leave to remain, of course, you're entitled to apply for benefits. And I think the DWP is saying, look, the bill can't go up anymore. We've got to address that issue. And one of the ways of addressing it is extend the time for indefinite leave to remain to 10 years rather than 5. Whether I agree with that or not is another issue. But I think it's fair to say the PM and Shabana are doing everything they can to address the issue, which has been.
I think I would accept
I'm not
that.
going to deny it's not.
I think they're trying. I said, but the results are frankly risible. You know, I mean, they're just not getting anywhere. It's getting worse and worse. More than 500 came across last week, and they're doubtless coming across today. As long as the weather's good, they're coming across. There's no deterrence. Can I just ask you a last question, please, Carl? Because it's sort of up around your region. Leeds Council is offering counselling sessions to its staff to recover from the trauma of Nigel Farage visiting that city last week. I mean, clearly that's a political manoeuvre by Leeds City Council, but should ratepayers, should council taxpayers be having their money spent like that? Memos being sent, counselling be offered to staff because Nigel Farage stepped into their area? It's mad, isn't it?
Well, look, Nigel puts me off me grub, Kevin, I have to tell you. It puts me off me evening meal on a number of occasions when he's chatting away. But the reality is, I don't need counselling. And look, my constituents would say, for crying out loud, get a grip, for goodness sake. I mean, it's just balmy. You know, what we have to recognise is, look, officials within councils and civil servants need to just get on with the job they're paid to do and not be reacting to the fact that some speaker's going to come along. People are entitled to say what they think. You've got to debate these issues. I'd like to debate Nigel Farage on an area of a few areas of policy. But, I mean, I wouldn't need the day off and counselling because he's had the audacity of turning up into Hull. Look to him. He keeps threatening to come. He's welcome anytime. I'll debate him on any subject.
Well, I want to see that, Carl. I want to see that. I want to see you versus Nigel Farage. Listen, Nigel, thank you. Nigel. Carl, thank you so much for coming on. Come on again soon. Carl Turner, Labour MP for Kingston upon Hull East. He is one of the good guys. They're not all mad in that party. A spokesman for Leeds Council, when we put it to them, why are you offering counselling to staff who were allegedly traumatised closed because Nigel Farage came into your area. They said, even though this is no counselling or specific well-being offer related to this or any other planned event has been offered to council staff. Well, we've seen, I'm not sure that's true. In addition, no formal internal communications have been issued to Leeds City Council staff regarding this week's event. Any internal emails sent between staff do not represent formal communications. So these communications were clearly informal, because they certainly exist. But Leeds Council basically saying we don't know about them. They must have been done on a personal basis. Counselling, therapy offered to staff of Leeds City Council because Nigel Farage went there. 0344 499 1000. When we come back, let's talk about crazy Ed Miliband and how much he spent flying to Brazil to save the planet. That next. Stick around.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just about the most terrifying aspect of modern Britain right now is the fact that we have a nut zero maniac called Ed Miliband, Crazy Ed, who is doubling down on his green claptrap. Oh, you know, we've really got to be totally powered by windmills and solar panels. The Iran war only makes that clearer. No, it doesn't, Ed. We've got to be pragmatic. We've got to start drilling. We've got to start getting oil and gas out of the North Sea, maybe start fracking, because we haven't got time for your virtue signalling, for your sixth form activism. It's ridiculous. That is worrying. Maybe more worrying is his general devotion, his zealotry about this net zero claptrap. He took 470 delegates, British delegates, to COP30 over in the Brazilian rainforest last November. 470. New figures reveal that on that, to save the planet, all flying there and back on planet-destroying, polluting passenger jets, then staying in planet-destroying, polluting hotels, eating planet-destroying food, etc., etc. 470 of them. Turns out that cost us, British taxpayers, £800,000. That's what that guy spent on our behalf to save the planet, destroying it as he went along, because of flying so many people across the Atlantic to Brazil, to the rainforest. Hey, Ed, ever heard of Zoom? It could save a whole load of planets, including ours. Let's talk to the campaign director at Net Zero Watch, Maurice Cousins. Hi, Maurice.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm all right. I mean, this is absolute epic fail hypocrisy, isn't it? To take 470 British delegates to COP30, which, as always with these COPs, was not much COP, achieved the square root of zero, nothing, didn't achieve anything, as they always don't. He went twice. He went and then he flew back and then he went again. All of these jets are destroying the planet so that they can all gather in the rainforest and sit around polishing their halos, talking about saving the planet. It's just insane.
It is insane, and you know, the staggering levels of hypocrisy shouldn't really surprise us. I mean, really, what he's doing when he's doing this is he's actually confirming really what we all know, which is how bloody difficult it is to decarbonize the world and aviation. And he recognises clearly the benefits of flying and of fossil fuels. So I don't know whether to sort of like slam him or to sort of say thanks, Ed, for doing my job, for proving that what you're actually calling for is next on near on impossible.
Let me read out a spokesman for Mr. Miliband, Crazy Ed's Department for Energy Security. For the Department for Energy...
very secure right now.
Insecurity, I'd say, and net zero. He said, the UK delegation at COP30 was crucial in driving forward a historic roadmap, oh God, roadmaps, with 80-plus countries to transition away from fossil fuels, boosting energy and climate security for the British people. We make no apologies for ministers and officials travelling around the country and abroad fighting for investment, jobs, energy security and action on the climate crisis for Britain. It's like stepping into Alice's Wonderland, isn't it? Absolute
Well, they're
nonsense.
shameless. They're shameless. These people could spin it as much as they like, that what they're doing is saving the planet and, you know, whatever other guff that they like how they like to sort of spin it. Let's just be clear what they are doing when they're at these places. This is a conference that is attended by highly privileged elites.
Something like 30,000 of them, I think.
Yeah, to talk about how best they can restrict economic activity and individual freedom. That's really what it boils down to. These people want to push up the cost of living. They want to deny us from being able to fly, to go on holidays or to take car trips for our own convenience. They're perfectly happy to go and do their things. And I think you're right. You know, if they want to demonstrate real climate leadership, Ed Miliband could show that by doing climate diplomacy on Zoom or Teams.
Zoom, FaceTime.
Yeah, or you know, someone else who I don't agree with, but at least she puts her money where her mouth is. You know, Greta Thunberg, she took a sailing boat and she went from Stockholm.
I mean, but mind you, she's moved on to. She's not interested in the world. She's saving Gaza now. Maurice, good to talk. See you soon. Back in a mo, folks.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's a shame about Hugh Edwards, isn't it? There's a TV drama on Channel 5 tonight that starts about him, you know, the BBC's in-house pedo. He's very upset about this drama. He said they haven't checked the facts with him, and he thinks it's irresponsible. It's not remotely responsible or fair, he says. Here's the thing. I'll tell you what isn't fair, Hugh. It's child sex abuse. Preying on children for your sexual gratification. That's not fair, I would suggest. And as such, if Channel 5 haven't been fair to you, get this through your head. No one cares. You deserve it. You should be in jail. 03444991000. Just shut up, Edwards, all right? Unbelievable. Who the hell does he think he is? Anyway, on that bombshell, let's go over to my first guest for this second hour of Drive Time today. He is social policy analyst, Dr. Rakib Ahsan. Welcome, Rakib. Good to have you on the show.
Hi, Kevin. How you been?
I'm all right. You've been busy. We've got lots to talk about, but let's talk about the Policy Exchange Review report last week about the integration of the Muslim community, the Islamic community in this country. You were involved in that. You wrote some very good pieces for the media about that. And the debate last week, of course, was focusing on the 3,000 or so Muslim men who gathered to pray in Trafalgar Square to mark the end of Ramadan. And some observers, including Danny Kruger from Reform UK, saying that that looked like an act of religious aggression, of religious division, and perhaps we shouldn't allow such mass open-air praying sessions of any religion. And then, you know, a lot of people say, well, why shouldn't they be allowed to do it? It's no big deal, just 3,000. On Friday, in a place called South Heath Park in Birmingham, more than 30,000 Muslims gathered to have an open-air praying session. Now, obviously, we totally believe in the right to pursue your own religion, and Muslims, of course, have that right in this country. 4 million Muslims in this country at the moment. But that just, when you see that, 30,000 Muslims in a park, open-air, praying, that does not sort of sing of integration, does it?
Kevin, let's talk about the Policy Exchange report, which I personally authored. So it's very interesting. I'm sure you'd agree, Kevin, especially when looking at that survey data, looking at public attitudes towards the ongoing Iran conflict, which escalated into a full-blown regional war with, you know, potentially serious consequences for the wider global economy. I found it very interesting looking at the gap between British Muslims and much of the general population in terms of how they perceive the conflict, looking at Iran specifically. So if you actually look at the data, we also asked respondents, how did they feel about the wider international system more generally? And what was so interesting is that compared to the general population, British Muslims are much warmer towards Iran. That's possibly because Iran is viewed as the one country really taking to the fight to Israel, and the Gaza war has been something which has really unified many British Muslims in terms of expressing their solidarity with Palestine, but also warmer attitudes towards China and Russia. So I think what you see there among British Muslims, there are more aggressive forms of anti-Americanism. Now, talking about what happened at Trafalgar Square, I think, Kevin, I'm sure you know that there's many large-scale religious occasions which have taken place at Trafalgar Square, cutting across the horizon.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
I think what it shows is, I think that there's naturally there is that tendency, you could say, of really expressing stronger anxieties when it comes to the presence of Islam in modern more generally.
Yeah, indeed. And what you were talking about, 39%, I think it was, of British Muslims. It's an exaggeration to say they back Iran, but they sort of support Iran over Donald Trump and Israel.
They look at Iran favourably. I mean, that's based on this. Well, for the general public, it drops to 8%, so it's quite a gap.
Yeah, and also Russia, they look more favourably on Russia than the rest of us, if you like. Is that, Rakib, because Muslims, members of our Islamic community, are raised to first support their religion and second their nation, as in Britain?
Well, I think, firstly, Kevin, you're aware that the concept of the Ummah, where is ultimately the idea of there being a global Islamic community that transcends geographical, national and ethnic boundaries. Many British Muslims hold that concept very dearly, and I think that very much motivates their solidarity with Palestine, for example. I think that when you're looking at this subject more generally, if you look at Russia, Islam holds a very high status in Russia. In fact, it's one of its traditional religions. It's recognized under law and qualifies for subsidies from the government. And I think maybe you could say that Russia is a relatively socially conservative culture, has a relatively socially conservative culture compared to ours. So maybe British Muslims feel a greater sense of connectedness with Russia. But I think what's really interesting is that it's the anti-Americanism which is really playing out here. Yeah. I'm sure you know, Kevin, that when you look at China, for example, they don't traditionally treat its Muslim citizens very well, especially Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province. You can also say the same about Russia as well when it comes to Tatar Muslims in annexed Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula. They're not treated particularly well either. So I think what really shows is that the anti-Americanism is increasingly being mainstreamed in the UK. Yes. We have to make that point. But it is especially severe among British Muslims.
Just a headline on the entire report and your contributions was basically this, that we do have, in terms of our Muslim community in Britain, we have an integration problem, don't we?
Well, I think I think we shouldn't romanticize how much of an integration success story that we have been. Now, I think that maybe compared to other European countries such as France, Germany, and the Netherlands, we perhaps have more positive outcomes when it comes to integration. But that's not to say that you've won the Champions League. That's more like the Europa League, to be absolutely honest. I mean, the bar's quite low there. But I think there's no... In partly, there's very intense form of ethnic and religious segregation, and that can ultimately act as echo chambers, you could say, for public attitudes, but both domestic and foreign policy, which do not necessarily nestle with much of the general population.
Where do you stand with Danny Kruger, Nigel Farage, I believe several Tories are suggesting it as well, that we ban mass public open praying, not just for Muslims but for all religions? It might make things easier, don't you think?
Well, I think that that's going down the sort of French route, isn't it? That sort of rigid model of secularism, their constitutional principle of laicite, which is very sceptical of religious expressions in the public sphere. Of course, you couldn't possibly make any kind of rule which was specifically targeting British Muslims. I think as a social conservative, I'm relatively comfortable when it comes to forms of religious expression in the public sphere, even if you could consider it if someone was to call it a mass prayer ritual. But I think that when you live in a society, you also have to, where actions are taking place in the public sphere, we are a rapidly secularized society as well. And we have to see, what's taking place there, various forms of religious expression, if they're seen as too assertive or they're seen as too large scale by some people, what kind of impact could that have on social cohesion? I think it's, even I'd say this as a social conservative who actually values the contribution of faith more generally in modern Britain, I think it's a conversation worth having.
It's definitely a conversation worth having, which is why Keir Starmer was very wrong to just react to Danny Kruger, who raised concerns about what he saw in Trafalgar Square. It doesn't matter where you stand on the argument. It's worth having the debate. And for the Prime Minister to say, if he was my minister, I'd fire him immediately. That's exactly the kind of tempestuous reaction to these situations that we don't need, that doesn't help. I don't think Danny Kruger was being racist or Islamophobic. He didn't like what he saw and he raised the issue. If you did like what you saw, have an argument with Danny Kruger. We need to discuss this. I agree with you.
We should.
Don't sweep it under the carpet, because it's a clear and present issue that deserves the oxygen of publicity. Let me ask you what you thought about what we saw in Golders Green, near where I live, this morning at 1:45 in the morning, early hours of the morning. 4 ambulances which were they were owned and raised or owned by Jewish charities that raised funds for them. They weren't just for Jews, they were for the local community. There's that haunting CCTV footage of 3, there they go if you're watching on telly, 3 hooded figures coming across the street and basically setting fire to these ambulances and exploding them. They made a hell of a racket. They woke my wife up in the middle of the night. I didn't hear it, but she did. And we've got now the traditional process of the government and the police and the authorities wringing their hands, trying to decide whether or not this was a terrorist incident. The Israelis say they think it was Iranians. It looks to me, for all the world, like a terrorist attack on a Jewish community, an anti-Semitic attack. What are your thoughts about this? Have the government done enough to stem the rise of anti-Semitism in this country?
I think there's a question to be asked in terms of the government. Has it done enough to address forms of anti-Semitism, which have undoubtedly increased in recent times? I would say has risen exponentially. I think that what this really shows, Kevin, unfortunately, is that modern Britain, its portrait is very complicated, and the reality is global events, including geopolitical conflicts, have the potential to have very serious consequences when it comes to community relations in modern Britain, especially when it comes to the public safety of certain religious minorities. And I think in this case, what this really shows is that when you're looking at, how successful are we as a country in terms of our diverse makeup, I have to say, when you look at incidents like this, you have to really question where we are when it comes to social cohesion and when it comes to public safety, and more generally, how safe are British Jews in modern Britain? I think there is a question to be asked there.
Well, as I say, I live near there, and let me tell you, the Jewish community around Golders Green is not feeling at all safe right now. Let me ask you a last question, Rakib. The President Donald Trump, is now saying that his threat, which was about getting on for about nearly 2 days ago. He gave Iran 48 hours. He said, unless you open up the Strait of Hormuz, I will bomb you like there's no tomorrow. I will bomb your oil, your gas, your water supplies. I will destroy you unless you open the Strait of Hormuz. This morning, he announced, well, good news. The Iranians have been talking to me, and they clearly want to get real about this, and therefore I'm not going to be bombing their gas and oil and water because they want to reach a solution. That's excellent, and I'm going to scale down the bombing campaign. Iran immediately announced, what talks? We haven't said a word to him. What's happened here, it seems to me, is it's been pointed out to Donald Trump over the weekend. If you go ahead and you bomb the hell out of Iran's oil and gas and water, they will retaliate by blocking the Strait of Hormuz forever. And when they do that, you don't want to know about it. The world will never be the same. So, I like to try to support Donald Trump, but it's difficult in these circumstances because it looks to me as if Iran just kind of won.
Well, I found it very interesting that the Iranian response to this was that it's fake news.
Yeah.
Which, I think that, listen, I think that there's been a bit of miscalculation. Now, I'm no fan of the Iranian regime. I think we just saw that heavily militarized nationwide demonstrations, unprecedented massacres, Kevin.
Yes,
really
of course, of course.
But I think that these surprise US-Israel airstrikes in Iran, I think they were quite reckless. And I think that the reality is that they threatened to make very serious consequences, to have very serious consequences for the global economy, the transportation and supply of oil, which will have a very significant effect on the cost being potentially in the Western world. That includes for America. Was to go with this, it would cause even greater instability across the entire Middle East region if he was to proceed with his plans to bomb these power plants. And then I think crucially that threat of blocking the Strait of Hormuz completely, it could draw much of it would make the global economy it create into much of a standstill. So I think that someone's had a quiet word and actually realised I don't think you should carry on with this, Mr. President.
Yes, exactly right. He's now going to declare total victory. All aims have been achieved. No, they haven't. And guess what? The Ayatollah's still in charge of Iran. The regime is still there. So, I'm not against having a go at Iran, and there's every possibility they might have been close to nuclear armament. So I'm not against that, but it does increasingly look as if the Americans didn't engage in too much foreign future planning, did they?
No, absolutely. Kevin, I'll make this point. As I said before, the Iranian regime is a thoroughly nasty one.
Yep.
And we saw that in terms of how they clamped down on the recent nationwide demonstrations against its own citizens. But what's very clear is that when it comes to regime change in Iran, that cannot possibly be engineered by a Trump-Netanyahu axis. That's quite bizarre,
a few bombs. I mean, I know it looks dramatic and it's very devastating, but a few bombs on 90 million people. Do not regime change make, as Donald Trump is finding out.
Absolutely, Kevin. And I think actually what might have been the unintended consequence, the people who may have been against the regime would have been so appalled by these surprise airstrikes by US-Israel, it might have just strengthened their degree of Iranian solidarity in that sense against the airstrikes. Now, that's not to say they're supportive of the regime, but I think ultimately there'll be many Iranians who ultimately value national sovereignty first and foremost. So I think that this entire military campaign, I think, has been somewhat reckless, and I don't think it's going to be achieving regime change anytime soon.
Does look like that way, doesn't it, Rakib? Rakib, great work last week and great to have you on the show.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, mate. Dr. Rakib Asen there, social policy analyst. Let's quickly talk to our first caller, Georgina in London. Hi, Georgina. What did you make of the Golders Green atrocity?
Well, I've got to be honest with you, Kevin. I think these attacks have become more frequent since Keir Starmer recognised the state of Palestine, because it has, in essence, given a green light to certain individuals to carry out such abhorrent behaviour. I'm convinced that every day now we're coming closer to living in an Islamic state, as we're not safe within our own country or communities anymore. We're not prioritised, we're not listened to, and we're not protected. If these terrorists who committed this horrendous act this morning had been white British, then I guarantee that the government and the police would have come out immediately and said it was a terrorist incident. But because they weren't, they have to do inquiries. This was a terrorist attack, as sure as God made little green apples. I think, personally, it's yet another appeasement of the Muslim community, because our government and police are terrified of the reprisals that will occur if the Islamic community is called out for this anti-Semitism. And it's going to get worse, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, Keir Starmer, was full of all the usual platitudes this morning. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims, the loved ones, and all this kind of rubbish, as usual stuff. And there's no place for anti-Semitism in our society. Well, the point is, Georgina, there should not be any place in anti-Semitism in our society, but the fact of the matter is there is a place for it. Last October, 2 Jewish people were killed in the anti-Semitic attack on that synagogue. Now we've got this, 4 ambulances, Jewish ambulances if you like, blown up in the middle of the night. Clearly terrorism, and we got a government and police force, the authorities desperately working hard now to make the announcement they surely are desperate to make. Oh, it wasn't terrorism. Yeah, it was.
We're sick of hearing this, Kevin. We are totally sick of hearing the same old BS from this government. Listen, I thought this was all over after World War II, okay? I didn't think our Jewish communities would ever be vilified again the way they were in World War II. And it's creeping closer and closer, and this government are allowing it to happen. Now, we can't put up with this anymore, Kevin. People are in danger. And for the sake of cultural cohesion, we are being thrown into the meat grinder. And it is not right, and it is unacceptable. This government needs to get a handle on what's going on, open their eyes and see what is happening with our Jewish communities, not just in Britain, everywhere. It's happening again, and we've got to do something about it.
You're absolutely right. We've got to have a government who does something about it, because all we ever get from this lot is words. They allow these pro-Palestine, anti-Semitic marches to snake through our cities every weekend. They won't do much about this. First thing they do when they see clear terrorism against Jews is try to establish that it's not terrorism. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. It really is.
What's the next thing? What's the next thing, Kevin? Are they going to tattoo people again? Is that what they're going to do so they can recognise them in the streets? This has got to stop. We don't want sorries anymore. We're sick of sorries. It means nothing. It's empty words. We want something done about it.
We do. We need something done, Georgina. We need something done fast. They've done nothing now since October the 7th. It's not good enough. Thank you very much. Another excellent call from Georgina in London. Next up, we're going to ask why there are increasing calls to let boys join the Girl Guides. Why would boys want to join the Girl Guides? Why don't they just join the Scouts? I don't know. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, after the Supreme Court quite rightly came down with their ruling on biological sex, took them 5 years, greatest legal minds in the country, 5 years to decide that basically if you were born a man, then you're a man. And if you're born a woman, you're a woman. And nothing can biologically change that. Male and female are in your genes. You can't change it. You can have surgery, but you're still biologically the sex you were born with. Anyway, the Girl Guides, fairness to them, one of the few organisations to take note of this ruling by the Supreme Court, and they immediately banned what in my view was already an insane policy of allowing boys to join the Girl Guides, boys who identify as girls to join the Girl Guides. So they banned boys from joining. I would say if a boy wants to join the Girl Guides, why doesn't he not join the Girl Guides and join the Boy Scouts? The Boy Scouts are for you, mate. Go there, not the Girl Guides. Pretty ridiculous. Anyway, you'd have thought, well, that's fine. But there's a splinter group within the Girl Guides. It's all going very dramatic at the Girl Guides Central. This group is calling itself Guiders Against Trans Exclusion. They've launched a massive, great campaign to reverse the decision and let boys back into the guides. Girl Guides. Boys back into the Girl Guide. Why? It's crazy. Let's talk to the Welsh coordinator of the Women's Rights Network. She's a former police superintendent, national policing lead on women's rights. The excellent Kathy Larkman. Welcome, Kathy.
Hi, Kev. Thanks for having me on.
Good to have you back on the show. Look, the Girl Guides, as I just said, rarely in this modern Britain of ours, showing a bit of common sense. Right, the Supreme Court have ruled on biological sex. We can no longer, due to that ruling, allow boys to join the Girl Guides. So they ban boys. There's now the Guiders Against Trans Exclusion group, GATE for short, are campaigning to reverse that decision. They put badges on sale. They're called Rainbows badges, and they are campaigning throughout the Girl Guide movement, let boys back in. One Brownie leader told the Daily Telegraph, it's an increasingly hostile environment. Communications from Girl Guiding HQ seem to assume that everyone is devastated by the rule change. I haven't heard a single parent complain or ask me about it. These are trans extremists again, kicking up a big noise, trying to make a mess where it's not needed. Just don't let boys join the Girl Guides. It's not rocket science, is it?
I couldn't agree more with you, Kev. It's absurd. It's not a little creepy either, what's happening. Unfortunately for Girl Guiding, they are reaping a little of what they've sowed here, or they're reaping a lot of what they've sowed, actually. An organisation, Girl Guiding, was set up in the early 1900s to help girls have a specific single-sex space to develop skills like confidence, leadership, and other skills that are needed as well. That sometimes girls need to be in the presence of their own sex as they're growing up to be able to develop those skills. And unfortunately, since around 2017, Girl Guiding changed their policies to allow boys to identify in as girls into the organisation. And for Girl Guiding, this is what's happening now really is the natural result of allowing activists into the organisation to rewrite their policies and now foisting their harmful beliefs on young developing minds. And those activists can't accept the Supreme Court ruling, unfortunately, so they're using those children as part of their campaign really to circumvent that. Because as we know, girls can't have anything of their own anymore without there being a challenge and without these activists saying, sorry, you have to include boys because boys are girls too.
So I'm not sure how the age divisions shape up in guiding and brownies and all that. But I think around about the age of 10 or 11, a brownie will want to move up to the girl guides. Like it's the same with boys from the Cubs to the Boy Scouts. It's around about the age of 10 or 11. So what the girl guides are saying is when you're 10, or if you're a boy and you're 10 or 11 and you decide you want to identify as a girl, you should be allowed into the girl guides. I would say that was a really, really irresponsible decision to make about an 11-year-old boy or a 10-year-old boy, because, you know, they don't really know what they're thinking. If you say, yeah, you can be a girl guide, that could well change them for the rest of their lives. A better policy might be able to say to them, listen, kid, you're 10 years old, you're a boy. Those are the Boy Scouts. Go and join them. You can't join the guides. Good idea?
Well, exactly. There are many mixed sex organisations as well, which children of either sex can join. And within Girl Guiding, you actually, if you wish to, start off as in the Rainbow group from the age of 4 upwards, and you then progress through brownies, guides and rangers, and the end point for rangers is 18 years of age. Now, when the Supreme Court judgment was announced, it took Girl Guiding many months, actually. It wasn't until the beginning of December last year that they announced, in their own words, with a heavy heart, that they would now be restricting membership to girls only, and not boys who identify as girls, or, as they said, trans girls. It's unbelievable. But what you have to bear in mind, Kev, is before that, their internal policies said that they would keep secrets from parents, they would allow access to changing rooms and toilets according to how you identify for the children who are members. They would allow them to use the facilities of their choice on overnight stays, depending on how they felt comfortable. And we at the Women's Rights Network had raised that several times. We weren't the only one. They've actually expelled guide leaders from their midst for identifying these clear red flag and safeguarding issues. Katie Alcock, a guide leader in Lancaster, won a discrimination case against them for that very thing.
It's ridiculous. So, Kathy, were you a girl guide?
Well, I'm not saying, but I recognise the value of the girl guides. Girls need those sort of spaces and services where they can sort of thrive and develop those skills. And I fully support them being able to provide those to girls. And I fully support organisations being able to provide services to boys separately as well. But girls sometimes need single-sex spaces, and that has to be respected. And they need privacy, dignity and safety where that's important too.
Exactly right. I just don't think that girl guiding, and for that matter brownies, or the Boy Scouts are an arena for, you know, trans activism. It's just all wrong to me. If you want to know, Kathy, I was a very successful cub. I got loads and loads of badges, including the Leaping Wolf, which was the big badge, you know. I had an arm full of them. Right, so I got to the age of 10 or 11, and then you go up to the Boy Scouts. So I was like the big noise in the Cubs, the local Cub group. 17th River Dover, if you want to know. The 17th River Dover Pack. Then I went up to the Boy Scouts, so I suddenly was a little fish in a big pond, and I didn't like that at all. So I only lasted in the Boy Scouts for about 2 weeks, and I bowled out. So that was my loss. But I think that the guides and the Cubs and the brownies and the Scouts are good for kids, and I'm sorry to see them wrapped up in all this kind of nonsense. But Kathy, fantastic to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the show. Come on again soon. Kathy Larkman there, retired Welsh Police Superintendent and Women's Rights Network campaigner. What do you think? Girl guides. I mean, should boys be allowed in? I mean, they're not as things stand, but there's a big campaign by GATE, Guiders Against Trans Exclusionism, or what is it? What are they called? Hang on, let's get this right. Oh, yes. Guiders Against Trans Exclusion, GATE. Are they right to want to have boys joining the girl guides? Or is it right they should be kept out? No brainer for me. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Talking of madness, we're going to talk about Leeds City Council next. They offered counselling to staff members who may have been traumatised by Nigel Farage's visit. to that city. Good, isn't it? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, Nigel Farage is due to visit the great city of Leeds tomorrow, I do believe. It's part of local council election campaigning, so he'll be going all over the country, the Reform UK leader. Anyway, but the council, the local council, its HR chief, a guy called John Ebo, is very worried about this on the effect on his staff, the staff who work at the town hall, the local council staff, because surely they'll be traumatised by, you know, a Reform UK guy, Nigel Farage, visiting the city. So he's written to them to say, no doubt you will have picked up on the news that Nigel Farage and Reform are holding an event rally here. I'm mindful such events of their impact on colleagues and would ask that we enable safe space conversations for colleagues, such as the Wellbeing Network chats. Basically, they're offered counselling if they're traumatised by the idea that Nigel Farage is visiting their city. I mean, how mad is that? 03444991000. Do let me know. Let's go over to Reform UK councillor in Epping, Jamie McIver. Hello, Jamie.
Hi, good afternoon.
Will Reform UK councils, because there are now a few around the country, be offering their town hall staff counselling if Keir Starmer visits the area?
Well, to be honest with you, irrelevant of whether you live in a Reform UK controlled council or not, if Keir Starmer is coming anywhere near your community, or frankly any Labour politician, I think that is a cause for concern, because those are people deliberately trying to wreck the country. Reform UK, of course, being the party deliberately trying to save the country. But, you know, isn't it interesting that those very people who are being paid by the great people of Leeds through taxation to be civil servants, to serve the public, are spending their time worrying about the future Prime Minister attending their community? And you know what probably distresses many of these, you know, champagne socialist, lanyard class council officers in the blob? What probably frightens them the most, Kevin, is actually the fact that the people that they are serving are quite likely to vote Reform in May, because they are probably going to find themselves in a situation where, as usual, they are completely out of touch with the communities they are meant to be serving.
Yeah, so this email from John Ebo was forwarded to Leeds City Council's Race Equality Staff Network with the additional warning: be vigilant if you are in the city centre that day. That's tomorrow. As one council staff member said, they don't email us about pro-Palestine protests or green events, just Nigel Farage. I mean, the whole idea that a council should be offering therapy, counselling, safe spaces to people who are allegedly traumatised by the visit of a political party leader who's campaigning for the local council elections. I mean, it's just insanity, isn't it?
It is, but do you know what? It's a symptom of the bigger problem. That is actually the quality of the people that we have got working in some of these local authorities. No wonder they're in so much debt. No wonder so many councils are broken. You know, what are they warning people to be vigilant of? A Reform UK member walking through the city with a Reform FC T-shirt on. You know, what is the worry? What is the concern? You know, this is just typical of the way this country has gone crazy. But, you know, isn't it interesting that it's all right, isn't it, when the Islamistic extremists take over the streets and make Jewish people feel so uncomfortable they can't leave their homes? Was there an email to Jewish members of staff following last night's horrendous attack on a Jewish community in North London? Has there been many emails to those colleagues? You know, this is just typical of what is going on. But actually, it comes from the very top. Because the Prime Minister is so petrified of the polls and the people, that's why he tried to cancel elections. Some of the rhetoric that has come from Labour politicians and the Conservative Party, I should add, is actually fueling hate and division in this country. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I think Reform UK is doing so well at the polls, is because we are actually seen by voters as a united party and therefore a unified voice for the people, a party of unity, a party that doesn't do division, a party that doesn't do hate. What you see from the Labour Party, the Green Party, the Tories, the Lib Dems, is lots of hate, lots of anger, lots of negativity and bad vibes. And I tell you something, the CEO of that council and that HR director would get their mood lifted probably by going to a Reform UK rally, because the vibe is unbelievable.
Yeah, okay. Moving on, another council, Liverpool Council. By the way, Leeds Council is Labour controlled, so is Liverpool Council Labour controlled. Make of that what you will, because Liverpool Council is telling the people of that great city that they shouldn't listen to media lies, and that it's not true that the migrants who come across the channel illegally and indeed arrive here legally from all over the world do sometimes come from cultures where they don't respect women as much as we do here in Britain. They're saying that this is nonsense, not true. That's what Liverpool Council is saying. That it's not true to say, is it not? It's not true to say that all these migrants are coming from cultures where women are fully respected. That's half the problem, isn't it?
Well, you know, first of all, they may have a point when it comes to reporting the facts in the BBC, but more generally speaking, they do not have a point because they are just factually flawed in what they are saying. First of all, we know that Afghans are 22 times more likely to sexually assault your daughter or granddaughter. So let's be real about the facts here. But also, let's be real about the reality. The tragic circumstances here in Epping, one of the court transcripts from Hamish Kabatu in that legal case was, in his defence, he didn't realise we were so strict, meaning he didn't realise there would be a problem with sexually assaulting a young girl in her school uniform. You know, this is clearly evidence that there are cultures which do not align with Britain. There are cultures that want to see female genital mutilation. There are cultures that see young girls get married off to men 2-3 times their age whilst they're still children. There are cultures that think that gay people should be stoned to death. There are cultures that think that women are not second class, they're actually third class when it comes to their level of importance in society and their equality. There, of course, are cultures that think women shouldn't be able to be identified. And look at some of the recent news that's going around about whether or not we should ban the burqa. So the reality is there are cultures that do not align with Britain. That is a fact. And of course, we can look at religion too. We can look at Islamist extremists that hate Jewish people, that hate people of Christian faith. These people all come from certain types of countries. And those countries happen to be many of the countries of origin of these unvetted invaders that are coming to our shores every single day via Kent and then coming to a hotel near your daughter's school.
Yeah, and Liverpool Council, Liverpool City Council, a spokesperson said they sent us a statement which is it's so long. I've read shorter novels. It's got like chapters and it goes on for hours. So we haven't, if you work for the Liverpool City Council press office, the show's only 3 hours long. So this enormous reply that you've given us, I'm not going to be able to get through all of it. Let me try and sum up the gist of it if I can, Jamie. We are committed to ensuring that all residents feel safe and that public conversations about community safety are grounded in accurate, evidence-led information. The information we shared on our recent communications draws on national data, including the Office for National Statistics, alongside local policing insight and established research. The evidence constantly shows that violence against women and girls is a widespread issue across all communities and backgrounds, etc., etc. Well, fair enough, but in terms of our... Well, wait a second, Jamie. In terms of our migrant community, the people coming over here, the people in asylum seeker hotels, in military camps and all that at the moment, it's looking as if a disproportionate amount of them are getting involved in sex crimes against women, rape and sexual assault. An alarmingly disproportionate number of charges, of accusations, allegations against these people. So when Liverpool Council try to say, well, this is across the board, they're missing the point, aren't they?
They are completely missing the point. And first of all, let's not forget one of the worst crimes that we're seeing some of these men commit, which is murder. There are young girls that are now no longer with us, and those families have had the trauma of losing a loved one. There's the trauma of sexual assault, trauma, of course, of rape, serious, serious crimes. But there are young girls that have also lost their lives at the hands of these men. But we are absolutely living in a country where, of course, we have our own homegrown men who are scumbags, who do awful things. And, crime reports will prove that. I'm not suggesting for a minute that it's impossible for an English person to commit those offences. But the point is, why on earth would you import the problem? And why on earth would you import the problem knowing the dangers that it presents? And let's be very frank about this, Kevin. The government is importing these dangerous people because there is a way to stop it. There is a way to stop the boats by leaving the ECHR, detaining, detecting, arresting and deporting en masse.
Wanting to do it, I think, is the secret. So wanting to actually do it, which our government doesn't seem to want to. And if Liverpool Council is maintaining that women are equally respected in countries like Afghanistan, Syria, Eritrea, and all the rest, then they've got another thing coming. That is nonsense. It's nonsense what Liverpool Council are saying, and they know it. This is irresponsible when they say there's no evidence to say that the migrants are coming from cultures where women are not respected as much as they are in this country. That's just a lie. It's just a lie. So Liverpool Council, raise your game. Jamie, good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Jamie McIver there, Reform UK Councillor for Epping. What do you think about all that? First of all, Leeds Council offering counselling because staff there may be traumatised by the upcoming visit tomorrow of Nigel Farage. What? That's taxpayers' money they're wasting there. And also Liverpool Council telling everyone, don't buy into, they call it myth-busting. Don't buy into the lie that asylum seekers are coming from cultures where women are not as respected as they are in Britain. It isn't a lie, it's true. We've got to confront this reality. You think women are as respected in Afghanistan as they are here? I don't think so. Do you, folks? 03444991000. Sean Custis, Head of Sport at The Sun, will be in next to discuss all the football and all the other sports that happened over the weekend. That next, stay tuned.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Sean Costas, Director of Sport of The Sun, is in the studio. Well, we need to talk about your team, Newcastle, in just a little while. Sean, not a good day for them again, losing to old local rivals Sunderland. But the bigger game, of course, was Arsenal-Man City in the Carabao Cup final. I watched it. I was stunned as to, I wouldn't say how bad Arsenal were. I think they were played off the park by a much better team.
Well, it was the Man City of old, wasn't it?
It was,
that was the thing.
Exactly.
And I know Ben White got a little upset when Cherky was juggling the ball up in the air, but that was the swagger Man City used to have. Yeah. Doku was going down the wing, just standing on the ball
at will,
saying, "Come on, then, come and tap me." That was pretty impressive, I thought, from City. That they really did have their swagger back. And now, of course, they're coming out with all sorts of quotes about, "We smell blood, we're coming to get you." Nico O'Reilly, who scored the 2 goals, 21-year-old, we smell blood, we can feel we can get them. Yeah. Look, Arsenal are 9 points ahead in the Premier League race. City have 1 game in hand, but of course they've got to play Arsenal as well. So just say you won both of those, you're still 3 points behind. So it's still a hard ask to do it.
How many games?
8, 7, 8.
Still doable.
Yeah, it is still doable, but it's hard. They're both still in the cup. City could do a cup double with a possibility of getting to the end and maybe nicking the Premier League title. Of course, City went out of the Champions League. Arsenal are still in it, so there's still a lot for Arsenal to brag about and to go for. And look, they've lost 1 game, but suddenly everybody's, they're going to bottle it. It's all wobbly. Look at them.
Well, one thing I would say, Arteta, the manager of Arsenal, is under fire for picking the number 2 goalkeeper, who did screw it up, didn't he? I mean,
the one-time £71 million goalkeeper, of course, who used to play for Chelsea, who's got a bit of a history in the League Cup. Remember when he didn't want to be substituted when he was playing for Chelsea that time? He missed a penalty in a shootout another time. So the League Cup has not been kind to. You feel like
saying to him, when you jump up for the ball with your arms like that,
catch it.
The idea is you catch it, you don't let it through your arms.
Yeah, I mean, people can blame Arteta for this. There's a lot of clubs who do like their second choice keeper to play in the cup games, although sometimes they change it for the final.
Come on.
I think Arteta was being possibly a little soft there. But look, aside from that, Arsenal were outplayed yesterday.
They were just totally out. As one writer said, it was as if they had 9 players on the pitch, and that's a very, very good assessment.
But players like Saka are not the players they were earlier in the season. He's had a lot of injuries. He's struggling a bit at the moment.
Yeah.
So I would say, him. Maybe Declan Rice didn't have the most influential game he liked yesterday as well. But he's had a really good season. So look, it might be it was a one-off. It might be.
They've got to dust themselves down.
They do have to dust themselves down. But hey, if they end up winning 3 trophies, are we going to really criticise them for losing the Carabao Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like.
And they are capable.
I'd like to say I wish Arsenal all the best of luck. Unfortunately, constitutionally, I'm unable to do that.
But as I've said this to you before, Fulham Arsenal wouldn't think you had a rivalry with Fulham.
Yeah,
Fulham,
well, that's why I don't like them.
You've just said before we came on air you played in probably the game nobody cared about on Saturday.
Well, we did. We were terrible in the first half, not bad in the second half. But let's talk about what I will grudgingly accept our more important games. We'll get to Newcastle in just a second, but oh my God, Tottenham 3-0 at home to Notts Forest.
This is that
weird. All about?
I've corrected you on that before, Kevin. Nottingham Forest.
Oh,
You're
sorry,
not allowed to call them Notts Forest. Anyway, it was a brilliant win by them. And Spurs, I've talked to a few Spurs fans who were there yesterday, and people were accusing them on social media of showing no fight. The Spurs fans actually felt that they did show fight. It's just they're not very good. They battled hard. They were a little bit unlucky hitting the woodwork, and Forest took their chances. Well, that's it. They felt that the players were fighting yesterday. They were putting it in, but they're just not up to it. That's the real worry for them. You haven't got a team good enough to get out.
Do you reckon they'll go down now?
I still don't think so. I still think West Ham are possibly worse, but
it's not a good season for London, is it?
You know, big clubs have gone down in the past. Mine has gone down.
Yours.
Leeds United go down. I mean, Leeds fans would argue they're as
not a big club, right?
Leeds fans would argue that they're as big a club as Spurs, and they've gone down.
Well, let's talk about your club. Unfortunately, after getting a shellacking in the Champions League midweek, everybody said, well, they've got to beat Sunderland, and they lost 2-1. I mean, wasn't a particularly pretty game. I didn't think Newcastle were that bad, but I'm surprised they lost. What went wrong?
There's a lot of players. You don't feel there's a team coordination. The weird thing is, I was looking at this today, 6 Newcastle players are in this England squad. Thomas Tuchel's England squad, right? The squad is 35, so that's more than a sixth of the squad is Newcastle players for a team that's in 12th in the Premier League. Right, and we say all these players are good players. So if more than half the Newcastle team are in the England squad, surely you should be a better team. So where is it going wrong? Is it that the coaches aren't getting the message over to them? They've also got a German guy in there who probably goes to the World Cup as well, in Voltemade. Whatever you think about him, he's going to be in the Germany squad as well. So, and we've got. He wasn't playing yesterday, but we've got Brazil's starting central midfield player and another Brazilian who will probably go as well. So something's not working between coaches and players.
There isn't. Let's hope Newcastle sort
and just quickly, Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, I wanted to get that. Lost to the
Anthony Gordon says we lost to a team that really isn't very good. In fact, they're very poor, Anthony Gordon says today. I think he's probably got to look himself in the mirror there.
Yes, there are times to say that sort of thing, Anthony, and when you've just been beaten by Sunderland, it isn't the time to say that. I like Newcastle. I hope they sort themselves out, but it's kind of strange because I think they've got great players, you've got a great manager. I hope they don't make the mistake of getting rid of Eddie Howe. Sean, really good to talk to you. We'll talk again very soon. Sean Custis there, Director of Sport at The Sun. Next up after the break, we'll talk to Isabel Oakeshott about all the big stories of the day. You don't want to miss that, so stay tuned.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Things may come and things may go, but Meghan Markle's desperation for cash goes on forever. She's off to Australia next month, a couple of weeks, and looks like she's going on a cash bonanza. She's going to make as much money as she possibly can down there, and may well even be launching her as ever range down under in Aussie land. She apparently has been lodging her copyrights for all of her products down in Australia, so she may be wanting to. At the moment, you can only get as ever products in America, thank God, but it looks as if she might be spreading them out to Australia, and who knows what. Australia, next the world. But she's also setting up all these personal appearances, speeches, weekends that you can pay to see her, all of this. It's just desperate money-spinning desperation. It really is. We'll talk about that with Kinsey Schofield fairly soon, in about 20-25 minutes or so. But first, let's talk about the... also taking your calls later on in the hour. 03444 99 1000. What do you make of the anti-Semitic attacks in Golders Green in North London? 4 ambulances exploded, firebombed overnight. Has the government done enough to stop this explosion, this ongoing explosion of anti-Semitism? I would suggest nowhere near enough. That's why it's still happening. What do you think of the empty words of Keir Starmer? There's no place in our society for anti-Semitism. Well, there shouldn't be, but there obviously is a place, because it's going on all the time. Is this government doing enough? 03444 99 1000. The migrant crisis. Hundreds coming across. More than 500 last week. Probably be the same number this week. No deterrence. What's going on? Shabana Mahmood wants a crackdown. Left-wing Labour MPs say, you do that, we'll vote you out of your office, out of job. She may well quit, because the lefties in the Labour Party won't let her instigate the crackdown on the migrant crisis that is so obviously necessary. That madness. What do you think? 03444 99 1000. Now, let's spend the first 20 minutes of this hour, though, in the excellent company of Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Hi, Isabel.
Good evening, Kev.
Good to see you. Good to have you on the show. Well, first of all, your thoughts on what happened just a stone's throw from where I live. I don't know if you were watching the show earlier, but, you know, sometimes these... Well, you'll know about big news events affecting you personally because you've been in Dubai with the Middle Eastern war, of course. Well, in a very small way, last night, middle of the night, much to my annoyance, I get woken up by my wife, look, going like this. Oi, oi, oi! I go, what? She said, did you hear that? I said, what are you talking about? She said, I heard an explosion. I said, oh, don't be so stupid. It's just some truck going past. Well, that was around about 1:30. So we know what that was. It was the sound of ambulances exploding not far from my house in Golders Green. The government right now, after that atrocity, that was an atrocity. We saw 3 hooded figures full of evil intent going across the road to set fire to those ambulances that were funded by Jewish charities, not just for Jews, but for the entire community. We know what this was. This was a terrorist attack on, for want of a better description, Jewish ambulances in a very Jewish area of North London. And the government, the police, the authorities right now are still, as in the tradition of these things, in the manner of these situations, desperately prevaricating, trying to work out or trying to conclude that it wasn't terrorism. They're veering towards an anti-Jewish hate crime, but hopefully in their minds they'll be able to say it wasn't terrorism. Well, it was terrorism, and aren't you just sick of every time you see something like this, we spend about 10 hours with the police trying to get to a point where they can say it wasn't terrorism. I don't care what you want to call it. We know what we saw with our very own eyes. This nonsense trying to play down the firebombing of Jewish ambulances, again, insults our intelligence, doesn't it?
I mean, what a low-down, depressing outrage that is. And the footage that we're showing now, for those who are watching online, is very, very brutal, isn't it? You know, just the charred remains of those vehicles whose primary function is to help people who are desperately in need of urgent medical care. What kind of individual or group targets that? You know, even in a war zone, generally ambulances are left alone to do their job, whatever side of any conflict you're on. And I just feel so desperately sorry for the Jewish community across the UK, but particularly in North London. I know how vulnerable they feel. I know how betrayed they feel by this government. I know how exposed they feel. And every day is that they get through without some horror happening to any of their loved ones or to the wider community is a day that they can sigh a breath of relief, knowing that the next day they're going to be running the similar gauntlet of the hatred that has been allowed to mushroom in the UK against the Jewish community. It is an awful thing. And there it is, symbolised in that terrifying act.
Yeah, and the two guys, you know, have come out with the platitudes today. Of course, Keir Starmer, there is no place in our society for anti-Semitism. Well, you know, there shouldn't be, but there clearly is. You know, tell that to the people of Manchester who last October witnessed the killing of two Jews in a clear anti-Semitic terrorist incident, whatever they want to call it. Now this in North London, the clear anti-Semitic firebombing of 4 Jewish-funded ambulances, and we get a Prime Minister saying there's no place for anti-Semitism in our society. What on earth is the point of that? Our thoughts are with the victims and blah, blah, blah. Then you get Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, saying Londoners will not be kowtowed by this kind of hatred, blah, blah, blah. What have those two men done, do you think, for about the rise, the explosion of anti-Semitism in London and in around the country, around Britain, since October the 7th, 2 years ago? What have both of those guys done to stop the rise of anti-Semitism?
I mean, nothing and nothing, basically. And in fact, in Sadiq Khan's case, leading those public Muslim prayers in the centre of London the other day, I would say, whilst that wasn't clearly an act of anti-Semitism, it is encouraging the more extreme elements of Islam in our country, which are so intolerant of Jewish community. And so I would say that he's actually, it wouldn't be fair to say encouraged it, but he has been grossly insensitive to what may lead to encouraging it. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, but basically I don't think Sadiq Khan really gives two hoots about anti-Semitism. And as for Keir Starmer, it's just platitude after platitude, isn't it? Yes, and I would suggest that anti-Semites were emboldened. For example, I mean, but they are emboldened by so many moves by this government, by this Muslim vote-chasing government. Everything this government does is to placate or please the Islamic community of this country, because they're so craven about retaining or trying to retain the Muslim vote. 4 million Muslims living in this country. But you know, among the many incidences that you could cite that perhaps embolden anti-Semites in this country, I would say probably the worst was last September, when Keir Starmer rewarded those vile anti-Semites from Hamas, those thugs who who invaded Israel and killed 1,200 innocent Jews. Keir Starmer rewarded Hamas, rewarded that atrocity by recognising Palestine. So he should bear some blame for the rise of anti-Semitism, because not only does he do nothing about it, I would suggest
that by so not doing anything, he allows it to grow and grow.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, all of this has changed beyond recognition to what it was, 5 years ago. In a short space of time, basically since the October attacks, we have got this horrible new poison in our society. And I just hope that they find who's responsible for that. And I think we'll learn an awful lot if we could identify the culprits.
Yes, we would. You see them going across the road, and then after they've obviously set fire to the ambulance, you can see the flames beginning to lick up. You see them running across the road again to make their escape. I'm sure they'd be very difficult to find, but Israel saying that they believe this was the direct work of Iranians. So we may well have had Iranian terrorism in London as part of the Middle Eastern war. So it's coming our way. Also, we learned over the weekend that Iran could probably reach us with long-range missiles. They proved that by firing missiles at Diego Garcia, the Chagos Islands, which is British territory. So far, we've had Iranian missiles fired at Cyprus, at our air base there, one of them hitting a runway, two missiles there. We've had a British base, which is shared with Americans in northern Iraq, absolutely showered with Iranian drone missiles, raining down on British military personnel who had to call for more anti-aircraft missiles to protect themselves. They were so deluged by this. So British military personnel are under attack. And now they've aimed missiles at British territory on the Chagos Islands. And all we've done, Isabel, as a country, is say it's time to de-escalate, we've got to talk. We've just become a country. Through the last couple of weeks, we have announced to the world, Britain has announced to the world, if you want to drop bombs on us, no problem, we'll do nothing about it. It's disgraceful. These people are not protecting British citizens, are they? The Labour government.
And what's more, not tell British citizens about it. Why didn't Starmer come clean about what had happened in terms of the attempted strike on Diego Garcia? We didn't hear anything about it. I think it was, for a full 30 hours, something like that. I mean, what's happened in the Iran US conflict in the last few hours has been really interesting, because that deadline that Trump set, it was a 48-hour deadline, people will remember, to reopen the Straits of Hormuz by something like 11 o'clock GMT tonight. Clearly, the clock was ticking, no signs that was going to happen. And Trump seems to have having made the threat that if it wasn't reopened within 48 hours of his ultimatum, he was going to start striking energy sites in Iran, starting with the biggest first. He's now resiled from that. It looks like he blinked first on that one, and is now, some people may have caught up with the post he put out on his Truth Social earlier today, in which he claims that he's had constructive talks, kind of negotiations, going in the right direction. It's such a strange message. It's almost semi-literate. He, instead of the word witch, he uses witch as in witchy Halloween. It just sort of strikes me as being written by somebody who's tired and emotional at that point, as well, I suppose he might be. So long and the short, for anyone who's been watching the clock thinking this deadline is about to come up in a few hours' time, Trump's extended it by 5 hours.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon, 5.
Well, he's not going to do it now. He's clearly not going to do it. And the chronology of this is, he says, if you don't open up the Strait of Hormuz to the Iranians, then I'm going to bomb you like there's no tomorrow. I'm going to bomb your oil, your gas, your water supplies. I will destroy your infrastructure. And the Iranians turn around and say, well, if you do that, not only will we continue blocking the Strait of Hormuz, we will block it forever. And you won't like that, Donald, will you? And Donald buckled. He's buckled. There's no doubt about it. So the Iranians are in the driving seat now. He's now said, I've had very productive talks with the Iranians over the weekend, and now I won't be dropping bombs on like I threatened. And we're going to reduce the amount of bombing, and hopefully we can reach some kind of resolution. The Iranians immediately announced, what talks? We haven't spoken to him. He's been warned that if he went ahead and bombed Iranian infrastructure and they blocked the Strait of Hormuz, the whole world would be in massive trouble. He's worked out he wasn't able to do that. Look, Iran has not lost its regime. The Ayatollahs are still in charge. He's now talking about doing a Venezuela. Oh, you know, it's all right. I'll co-run Iran with the Ayatollah. Good luck with that, Donald. This is a mess, isn't it?
I'm afraid it is. I mean, I fully support the objectives, the original objectives of trying to eliminate Iran's nuclear capability, to just destroy that completely, and regime change, although that was never articulated as an objective. But I think both of those things are necessary, but it just hasn't played out, I think, anywhere near as quick and straightforward as Donald Trump imagined it would. And my fear now is we are going to be left with a much diminished but nonetheless vengeful and completely uncontrollable remnant of the very regime that Trump may have failed to take out. And we don't know how would Israel react to that. Will Israel accept that kind of partial victory, something Trump will undoubtedly try to present as a magnificent victory, but I don't think the Israelis are going to be buying into that.
As I say, you know, you and me, I think we're both, you know, basically Trump supporters. I've got a lot of time for Trump. I mean, he's an unusual person, an unusual president, but I like the gist of him. But, you know, even those of us who try to support Trump, you know, this is a shambles, what we're watching in the Middle East. This is an absolute shambles. They clearly, Americans did not make any plans for the Strait of Hormuz. And now he's having to buckle, and basically, let's face it, Iran are calling the shots.
I think the difficulty is you've got, it's a bit like there are parallels with the war in Afghanistan, in that you've got all the tremendous firepower and military capability, not just of America, but various allies too, ultimately being blown up here, there and everywhere, in the case of Afghanistan, by just the odd Taliban nutter on a moped with, you know, some IEDs or whatever it may be. You know, tiny, it's asymmetrical warfare where a tiny country, or a country with very little, but people who are prepared to die for a cause, can completely derail the world's most powerful military capability. And you can have that all along the Straits of Hormuz. By any number of people hiding in caves or wherever it may be, where they're ready to blow things up as they pass through.
Exactly right. Just a last quick word from you, Isabel. Given that Labour controlled Leeds Council, the head of HR there was offering counselling, safe spaces to staff who may be traumatised by Nigel Farage's visit to that great city tomorrow. You know, because he's right-wing and all that, and Reform UK. Given that they're offering counselling to their staff because Nigel Farage is coming, will Reform UK councils offer counselling to their staff when Keir Starmer comes to their area, you know, in the interests of equality?
Well, you know, were it not for the fact that Reform councils tried very, very hard not to squander public money in that way, I would have said that that might be a necessary service. But I think that that probably wouldn't pass the Doge criteria of valuable use of taxpayers' money.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Really good to talk to you, Isabel. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. Isabel Oakeshott there, Talk's international editor. Let's play a quick voice note, then we'll go to break. This is Pete on Shabana Mahmood.
Hi, Kev. Pete from Lancashire. Spoke a few times, mate. Shabana Mahmood, mate. I feel for her, really, mate, because she has tried, hasn't she? She's tried, like, her best. And if she goes, maybe she's the first Labour deflector over to Reform, mate, eh? Because it is a Reform policy, really, what she's trying to do, isn't it? Anyway, mate, take care.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, it's kind of a good point. I mean, yeah, I think I've got lots of reservations about Shabana Mahmood, but she does recognise that something needs to be done about the migrant crisis and is at least trying to do something, but she's getting voted down by the far left maniacs on the Labour backbenches. So, you know, she's on resignation watch. Why should she do all this if the backbenchers are just going to vote her down? I know what you mean, but she should leave the ECHR and she won't, so she's not really serious about solving the crisis. She's just paying it lip service, in my view. What do you think, folks? 0344 499 1000. Do give me a call on that or any other issues, because I've got Kinsey Schofield next, and after that, we're going to put the floor over to you. 0344 499 1000. Take your calls. I'll read your messages, play your voice notes. So all that still to come. Stick around.
Is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to our royal guru. She is the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. She is the great Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hey, Kev. How are you today?
I'm very, very good. Let's talk about Meghan, as we always do. But as we know, she's heading to Australia soon for the latest pretend royal tour by her and that ginger guy she's married to. What's his name? Harry, that's right. Yeah, they're off to Australia to pretend that they're working royals when they're not. Now, we already knew that Meghan was going to cash in by kind of hosting this weekend, or being the star guest, main attraction at a weekend, the girls only weekend, the ultimate girls weekend, 300 women at a Sydney hotel where they can enjoy a fireside chat with Meghan, listen to her speeches, pose for selfies, yours for £1,700 through $2,300, or even more if you want the special selfie service. So we knew she was doing that. But it turns out that both her and Harry are busy booking as many cash for access appearances as they can in Australia. So they're turning this whole pretend royal tour into a money-spinning enterprise, because we think they need it, because they're not getting any more money from Netflix. And Meghan has trademarked all of her as ever lifestyle products in Australia. So the word is she could be planning to launch her weird online store selling mundane domestic products for astronomical prices down under in Australia. So this whole venture, when they go to Australia next month, a couple of weeks, it's just to make money. It's really tawdry, isn't it?
It is. And I had an Australian outlet reach out to me and ask me about where I felt the tone was when it comes to anticipation for this, basically. And they provided me with a poll. This is Yahoo. They provided me with a poll they conducted, Yahoo, which is a major media entity. And of the 747, I believe, people that participated in the poll, are you excited about Prince Harry and Meghan coming to Australia? This is the Australia portion of Yahoo. 95% of those polled said no. 95% said no. 5% said yes, but 95% said no. I think that this is a real miscalculation by Meghan and Harry. I don't think that the love that they received in 2016, as Meghan shook hands with strangers and mumbled to courtiers, I can't believe I'm not getting paid for this, I don't think it still exists for them. I also have said, even before I knew about this trip, that I said to Tom Bauer months ago, sometime last year, they had so much success in Australia. Why haven't they nurtured that relationship? And here they are trying to take advantage of the love that they did have in 2018. But again, they're so dumb that they think that they can just disappear for 8 years and then pop back up and go, hi, now buy our stuff. And that just isn't the way. A lot's happened since they were in Australia, like courtiers coming out by Valentine Lowe, revealing what Meghan's true feelings were about that trip and how she was resentful that she felt like she was working for free. About, you know, Tom Bauer's book, Revenge, I believe, goes into an incident that allegedly happened on that tour involving a hot coffee or a hot tea cup. So I just don't think that the Australian audience is as enthusiastic as Meghan and Harry suspect that they will be. You know, I'd love to know the analytics behind this decision. Did they look at Meghan's podcast listeners? Did they look at where she charted for with Love Meghan? Or did they just go with vibes and they felt like they had a great time in 2018, so this would be the right place to grow? Kevin, why not start in Canada, where Meghan lived for a significant amount of time, where they fell in love, really? Harry's, you know, secretly visiting her in Toronto. We know she has a lot of contacts in Canada. The Australian thing is so confusing to me. And I work there. I work in Australia twice a week. So I have a lot of contacts over there, and everyone is saying, what are they doing? Yeah. Well, you know, Samara Gill, our Ace, my former producer, now Talk's Ace reporter, obviously an Australian girl. And she says that, you know, the lack of interest among Australians in the gruesome twosome, Harry and Meghan, is profound. They just don't care. In fact, if they have any feeling about Harry and Meghan at all, it is, you know, slight distaste. They don't like them very much. They certainly don't care whether they come or not. So I think you're right, Kinsey. I think that Meghan and Harry are overestimating their appeal in Australia. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, Meghan is, as I said earlier, as ever, her ongoing bizarre online store that sells us mundane domestic products at astronomical prices. Why she thinks anybody wants to spend $14 on a jar of fake jam, God only knows. $28 for cookie dough and honey and God knows what. It's ridiculous. But on the company goes. Now, big story. Oh, she's registered all her products in Australia. She's clearly going to try and sell them on the back of their tour when they go down under, her and Harry. Well, you know what's interesting? The trademarking she's done for As Ever branding products is this. It's for
yoga straps, pet feeding mats, gardening tools, bath and shower gels, jewellery and furniture, gardening trowels, gardening shears, gardening wedding forks, and a garden tool gift set. So what isn't there? Food.
I was gonna say, like, nothing says Meghan Markle like an as-ever hoe, as-ever garden hoe.
But seriously, here's the deal. As we always said, she never seemed to factor in. If you want to sell food around the world to 50 countries or whatever, however she defines going global, obviously Britain, the European countries, Australia, New Zealand, you know, all of these countries, you have to navigate and deal with every single country's different rules on foodstuffs. The complexity of it is off the scale. So I think it's very interesting that the products she's trying to trademark are all non-foods.
Well, and I'd also say that if you believe Variety's report, that this was Netflix's initial ask of her. Netflix initially said, we want tangible items. I mean, now they say they wanted to move more along the lines of Bridgerton, like tea towels and teacups and things like that.
And Stranger Things as well, yeah.
Right, but they were frustrated with Meghan's insistence on, I mean, one of the quotes is like, there's so much jam. And Netflix wanted her to do physical products. They felt like that would move faster and easily. You know, that's a much easier sell than fruits or, you know, flour sprinkles. So I bet Netflix is sitting back going, what is she doing? Yeah. What is she? We tried to get her to do this, and now she's going into Australia and she's doing it while claiming that we were too safe with her. I think that they were moving at a realistic pace based on the lack of interest in her television program that they witnessed firsthand.
Exactly right. And as ever, I keep telling you, it ain't gonna last. It cannot last. And she's claiming she sold $36 million worth of jam alone. If she had done, Kinsey, let me tell you, Netflix would still be with her. They would still be backing her to the hilt. She was making that kind of money. I just don't believe that she is. I don't know how much longer this fantasy she has about this business can continue. I don't think it's making any money at all, and that's why Netflix dropped her like a stone. And I love that quote. A quote from a Netflix insider. Their offices were covered in as-ever products, and they said, Netflix insider goes, there was just so much jam everywhere, jam, that they couldn't sell. It's pathetic, it really is. Listen, before you go, let's get a few words in about Sarah Ferguson. We always thought that she couldn't sink any lower, but Sarah Ferguson, the former Duchess of York, has a special talent for proving to us that just as we thought she couldn't sink any lower, she can. And we learned over the weekend, yesterday, in fact, in the Mail on Sunday, this extraordinary story that Sarah Ferguson, Prince Andrew's ex-wife, has been talking with American reality TV producers about the idea of making a TV series based on her cloning the Queen's corgis and then selling said cloned dogs for $75,000 a time. The Queen entrusted Fergie for all her problems. The Queen loved Fergie's friendship for her dogs. So when the Queen died, she said, let Sarah look after my corgis.
That's not even true. What happened was the Queen said, when her last dog passed, she said, I don't want to get any more dogs because I don't want to outlive my dogs. You and I are dog people. You and I totally relate to this.
Yes, of course.
I don't want to get any more dogs because I don't want to outlive them. I don't want to abandon them. And so Prince Philip dies. And what does Andrew do? That little rat, he goes and gets her 2 puppies. One of the puppies passes away and he replaces that puppy. I don't even want to know what happened there. Yeah. But so he gets the Queen 2 puppies after Prince Philip passes away, despite the Queen saying, I don't want to outlive any of my dogs. And so when the Queen passed away, annoyed with the fact that there are these 2 dogs that the Queen specifically didn't ask for. The royal family, being King Charles and Prince William, thrust these dogs back on the Yorks and said, they're your problem now. The Queen didn't ask for these dogs. The Queen didn't want these dogs. I'm sure the Queen loved them in her later years, but we also know that she was struggling. I believe it was with bone cancer. And so Sarah has these dogs because the royal family said, they're your responsibility. You guys are the ones that gave her these dogs, despite her saying, I don't want to outlive any of my dogs.
I see what you mean. So now,
and so it makes it feel even grosser, right? That
it does. So they were foisted upon the Queen. Now,
was
Sarah,
she thinking of this the whole time?
Well, look, to be fair, we don't know where these talks went. I assume they broke down, and let's give Sarah the benefit of the doubt. Maybe in the end she wasn't that keen on the idea, but the fact that she actually had talks with a view to making a TV series about cloning the Queen's corgis and then selling them for 75 grand each, I mean, that's just, as I say, that is the lowest of the low. She cannot go lower than that, can she?
Well, I mean, you could.
Yeah, she can, can't she?
I was going to say you could call the royal family racist and then name your daughter Lilibet after the head of the family. So I don't know. We're used to low around here.
Yeah, it's extraordinary though, isn't it? I mean, we've got Andrew was pictured over the weekend taking his dogs for a walk on Sandringham, so he's now out and about. And we don't really know where Sarah Ferguson is. She's been flitting around the world, screaming apparently about, I have to make money. Somebody has to help me make money. Well, she doesn't really have any ways of making any money. Nobody's going to sponsor her anymore. I don't think she's got a handle on quite how far she has fallen. She's just an international pariah now. And if somebody said clone the Queen's dogs will give you money, she'll probably take it.
I mean, that's a very American show. I mean, like when I heard the concept, or breeding them so that you could have like a dog from the Queen's bloodline, I think, as I also read, like that is a very American show. And then watching all of the housewives, the Real Housewives, clamor to get one of these pups. I mean,
you're right, yeah.
Tell me that you wouldn't watch that.
So we can have I watched a reality series called The Real Housewife Owners of the Queen's Cloned Corgis. What do you think?
Yeah.
That's a show title, isn't it?
Bravo, send us a check. We're ready to produce it. We can make this show for you.
Yeah, I'm not proud, but I probably watched that, I must admit. Listen, Kinsey, really good to talk to you. We'll talk again on Thursday. Always a pleasure. Kinsey Schofield there, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. She's going to... What do you make of that? That Fergie was in talks with reality TV producers in America to clone the Queen's corgis so she could flog them for $75,000 each, make a TV series of it. So if you thought that Sarah Ferguson had already reached rock bottom, not true. She can always surprise you. She can always find a lower depth to sink to. What do you make of that? 0344 499 1000. Next up, it's Assistant Head of News at The Sun, John Lucas. We're going to go through what will be in the pages of that fine publication tomorrow morning. Now, that is next, so stick around.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5 times in the night. Welcome back. I'm with John Lucas. We're just talking about the old days on the Sun when I was there, the very old days. Now, John is the assistant head of news at the Sun, and we're going to go through some of the stories that will be gracing the pages of Britain's favourite newspaper tomorrow. First up, you're going with, of course, the anti-Semitic attack on those Jewish community ambulances in Golders Green last night. A new terror group backed by Iran is suspected of carrying out this arson attack.
Well, that's right. So is it terror on our streets? That's the question that we're asking of the police today. Obviously, crazy day all round with the Iran topic. We were just about to go into conference this morning with the line that we were hours away from global economic meltdown. Oil prices were soaring, stocks were dropping. Within 10 seconds, Trump's tweeted, actually, there might be a deal on the table, and everything's gone completely the other way, and had to change the news list. Also, running sort of in conjunction to that, we're looking at this story that sort of broke overnight with this arson attack on the Jewish community ambulances. And I know you've been talking about it a lot today.
Yeah, of course.
This group, Harakat Ashab al-Yamin, really runs off the tongue. They're not particularly subtle. This is very much believed to be a front for Iran's IRGC. They have very similar symbols.
So the fear is this is basically an Iran organised
and
attack.
they've been claiming responsibility for firebombing, sabotage, all this sort of stuff across Europe, and there was one in New Zealand, I believe, recently, and it's only formed in the last. And they're sharing all this stuff on Telegram, so it's not mainstream. You know, where lots of your listeners are probably on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, but it's across Telegram, and we're looking into this group now, and we'll find out as much as we can tonight, but obviously in the coming days we'll be looking more and more into them.
Yeah, Israel believes 100% that this was the work of Iranian terrorists, certainly Iranian-backed terrorists, so interesting to find out if it actually was this organisation. Sounds about right to me, which means, Iran has attacked Britain, has attacked a Jewish community in Britain as part of the war in the Middle East. So we're all involved, folks, no matter what Keir Starmer says. Let's move on, John. Let's talk about the last action hero. This is Royal Navy gunner John Dennett. Has died aged 101, one of the last of that generation. What did he do during the war?
That's right, yeah. Well, I always try and talk about these stories, as sad as they are. Obviously, we're getting more and more of them, the last of World War II vets. And I just think they always have such extraordinary stories, and they made such huge sacrifices, and it's hard to even sort of think of how brave they were. But this guy in particular, John Dennett, so he lived to 101. He was 17 when war broke out, and he was an apprentice bricklayer, which was a reserved occupation. So he didn't have to go and join the fighting at all.
He volunteered.
He volunteered, and he joined the Royal Navy, and he ended up taking part in every major land invasion of the war. So he was in November 42. He was helping the Desert Rats land in North Africa. The next year he was part of Operation Husky, that's in Sicily, where he's landing Allied troops for the invasion of Italy. Then Operation Avalanche, which was to take Salerno. He was also at the Battle of Anzio, and June 1944 he was helping to land tanks and troops on Sword Beach in Normandy. And he's just incredible, and obviously very, very modest, as all the guys from that generation are. And he would say, when he was asked about this, look, it's the lucky ones who grow old. And he was just such a great character. Amazing. And he was always at the anniversaries, and 101, there aren't many of them left, and we're giving this guy a really good show in the paper.
Good. I'm glad you're doing that. We need to respect these people and give them the credit that they are due. Well done, John Dennett, a real British hero. Has died aged 101 after fighting in every historic Allied landing in Europe during World War II. This is a guy who didn't have to join the Royal Navy, but volunteered at the age of 17. I wish we had people like that now in this country. I just don't think we do anymore. Let's talk about Only Fools and Horses star Buster Merrifield's grave has been vandalised. What's that about?
Yeah, well, look, I'm sure John, Mr. Dennett, would probably laugh at the way it segs into this story. We're going from one real naval hero to obviously Buster Merrifield, famous as Uncle Albert, who I didn't really think about that when I was coming up with this list anyway. It's fine.
From a real naval hero to a fake naval hero.
Well, Uncle Albert famously he was stationed a lot of the war in on the Isle of Wight, his character, and when someone put it to him that he hadn't really been abroad, been at sea, he said to the guy, "Well, I'd like to see you walk it." But anyway, Buster Merrifield, he's very sad actually. He's had his grave, his headstone vandalised. He's buried with his late wife Iris.
Whereabouts is
that? It's I'm not sure exactly where the grave is.
But why? Is it because he's famous?
Well, I think it's idiots. Unfortunately, it's got his picture on the grave, so someone's obviously looked at it and for whatever reason decided to smash it up.
But that's very sad because he died in 1999, age 78, but he's got a double grave with his late wife Iris. Leave him alone.
Yeah, and the Only Fools and Horses Appreciation Society has launched an online campaign to raise money to have all of this fixed and replaced. And if you obviously go onto our website later, you'll be able to see the story and you'll be able to get the link and go on and help if you want to.
We'll do that, and I think we should all try to help fix Buster Merrifield's grave. Horrible, horrible. Let him rest in peace, for God's sake. What harm did he ever do, except for play a much-loved character in arguably our greatest ever TV comedy, much-loved TV comedy? Do this. Unbelievable. John, excellent. Thank you so much. John Lucas there, Assistant Head of News at The Sun. Get that paper tomorrow, all of those stories and many more. When we come back, your calls, your messages, 03444 499 1000. That next. Stick around, folks.
Is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Here's a quick voice note. This is Kelvin on migration.
Kevin, easy solution. If they don't want the Home Secretary stopping all these migrants coming in, they want open borders, they won't let them all in. Tell all these MPs that want them in, give their wages up then, let them pay for them, not the taxpayers. The taxpayers are screwed enough for these people. So if they want them in, say, right, you can have migrants in your houses, we'll have your names and addresses, we'll put all migrants in your houses, and you can use your own money to pay for them. How does that sound? Bet they won't go for that. Bye.
I bet they won't, Kelvin. Thank you. A couple of messages, text messages. This is Stephen M. in Belfast. I reckon any city should be offered counselling if they've had a visit from Keir Starmer. They must be so stressed. That's my point. Yeah, blimey, I want serious counselling, therapy for the rest of my life, if ever I come anywhere near that guy. Pete the Mole has texted, angry is an understatement at what is happening in this country, and it all seems to be with the government, police and judiciary's seal of approval. I think he's talking about anti-Semitism, and I think he's right. Stephen or M again, the Jewish community don't want Starmer's thoughts, they want his action. The weak, lily-livered moron. Yeah, no action, all words, absolutely. Zarina talking about the Jewish attack, or the attack on the Jewish community ambulances. Surely those ambulances have insurance, eh? Maybe, I don't know. Should have thought so. Why would Streeting use taxpayers' money to replace the ambulances? I must add that those mindless thugs should be hunted and severely punished. I don't think it's as simple as that, Zarina, but, you know, I don't mind. As long as if they replace the ambulances right away, that would be good, because they do good work. People say, oh, what a relief, no one died in that attack last night or in the early hours of this morning. People might die because of it, though, because those ambulances are out of action. That's how horrible that attack was. Quick one from Martin in Lichfield. This despicable act of anti-Semitic terrorism shows how low this country has been allowed to fall after pointless platitudes from this so-called government. Nothing will change. There's plenty of CCTV, so it shouldn't be difficult to trace these terrorists, but I'm sure obstacles will be placed in the way. This awful political bias pro-diversity programme will make sure of that. It makes me so angry. Thanks, Martin. I hear you. I think, to be fair, I think it might be very hard to catch those guys. They're all in hoodies. They're just faded. But I think that the lack of action on the part of the government and the authorities to do anything about the explosion of anti-Semitism is obvious. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Sue in London. Hello, Sue.
Hello, hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. What would you like to say?
So I spent the first 2.5 hours this morning, instead of going to work, I literally sat countering the spurious claims on various platforms about Hatzola, about about the fact that the Jewish community, I am Jewish, about the fact that the Jewish community does have its own ambulance service. Why do you need one? Well, funnily enough, we can call Hatzola and they can be with us in 3 minutes rather than 4 hours. You know,
and they're not. And by the way, Sue, sorry to interrupt, but then, to be fair, they call them Jewish community ambulances. They were funded by Jewish charities, but they are available to the entire community.
Indeed, this is what I was going to say. So, so this is the kind of thing I've been getting today. What's your statistics about? Because I explained that the Hatzola saves both Jewish and non-Jewish lives. They will help anybody. You know, if you've got, anybody. I mean, it's usually Jewish people that know about Hatzola and know the number, whatever. You call them. Somebody's been hit on a bike. We don't say, "Oh, are you Jewish?" Someone's collapsed in the street. "Oh, are you Jewish?" Call 999 then.
I'll tell you, the way things are going, Sue, I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen before too long.
So I'm getting things like, do you have statistics about how many call-outs you've attended for non-Jewish people? Well, no, we don't have statistics because we don't ask, are you Jewish or not Jewish? Are you Muslim? Are you Catholic? Of course we don't ask. That is not our service runs like St. John's Ambulance and any of the other community.
I know.
And it's and the hate, to be honest with you, the utter jealousy that I'm getting, that I've been countering, it makes me ill. If you cannot rely on the NHS ambulance to get to you within 4 hours, then why doesn't your community get together and fund an ambulance?
Well, so I would suggest, I mean, I absolutely understand your frustration with the criticisms you've been getting, the unjust criticisms about these ambulances, but I would suggest that discussions about, you know, who they serve and how many Jews they go out to pick up and how many non-Jews are besides the point. This was a definite, obvious terrorist attack 100%. On the Jewish community in Golders Green. Yeah. And I already feel the government is not responding vigilantly enough. And the fact that the police are still looking into whether or not this was terrorism is typical. Every single time it's the same. Was this terrorism? Yeah, it was. Stop wasting our time with this and go and find the people who did it, right?
And can I tell you something? I am so proud of my people. Do you know what they've done today? Right. They've raised over £1 million.
Have they?
They've raised over £1 million to. We don't need. The government said they're going to replace the fleet, but we have raised as a community. We have put our hands in our pockets and raised.
Well, that's fantastic.
Isn't that incredible?
That is incredible, Sue.
Community I'm part of.
Good. Well, good for you, and I'm with you all the way, Sue. I've got to move on, but that's amazing. Well done, Sue in London. Very quickly, Lucy in London. Hi, Lucy. You used to work, or you worked in HR. You do work in HR. You don't think that Leeds Council have handled the upcoming visit tomorrow of Nigel Farage very well at all?
No, hi, Kevin. Sorry, I'll be quick because I know time's ticking. No, I'm the Chief HR Officer in the city, and I think it's all about, if you bang on about diversity, inclusion and equality and equity, then if you're providing a safe space for people that, because Nigel Farage is a bad person, is what the narrative is. That's what I would perceive it as. Then what kind of culture are you putting out in your work?
I'll tell you what, Lucy, it's utterly pathetic, and I'm glad